Chapter 1289. Especially those unmarried girls in the village. When they saw him, all of them blushed and looked at him in amazement. Oh my God! This man is so handsome, just like the celebrities on TV. So handsome. Who is this man? Why did he come to our village? Look. Is he looking in my direction? Don't be so smug. Wuxia was dressed in a casual suit, looking neat and tidy. One look and one could tell that he was either rich or respectable. Everyone guessed that this man must be a big boss from the city. Looking at his attire and his elegant and extraordinary temperament, it was obvious that he came from a wealthy family. How could an ordinary person have such an extraordinary temperament? Even though they were separated by a distance, the man's tall and handsome facial features, as well as his cold and noble aura, could not help but be deeply shocked even though they were dozens of meters away. There was an invisible air of nobility around this man. He was like a proud dragon that made people involuntarily submit to him. Such a person, no matter where he appeared, was like a god that could not be ignored. Zhao Linghua was also shocked by the man's handsome and tall figure. Growing up in the countryside, she had seen many dark-skinned, stocky men, but it was rare to see someone who was even more dazzling than the celebrities on TV. He was as elegant as a high and mighty prince. Ling Ling had never seen such a good-looking person. Even if it was just a glance, she could not shift her gaze away from him. Suddenly, her gaze fell on the man's face, and she could not help but frown slightly. She felt that this man's eyebrows were somewhat familiar. You, that little brother? Ling Ling was shocked. This man looked so much like little brother. Especially that pair of eyes, they were very similar. At this moment, another woman came out of the car. She was wearing a black dress. It was graceful and elegant, beautiful and refined. Although it was an ordinary dress, it made her look extremely elegant and noble. She had an elegant temperament. Everyone was shocked again. The woman in front of them seemed to be made of jade. She was exquisitely carved, delicate like a porcelain doll. Her skin was so delicate and white. Her face was flawless like white jade. Her facial features were exquisite beyond compare. She was pure and beautiful. So beautiful, this woman is really beautiful. Look at her skin. It's so white and smooth. It's as beautiful as jade. Her hair is so long and black, just like satin. Her eyes are so beautiful. Just one look and my soul is about to be taken away by them. The girls in the city are really different. They take such good care of themselves. The villagers exclaimed one after another. Some of the young ladies couldn't help but feel ashamed of their inferiority. They lowered their heads to look at their own rough hands from farm work and then looked at the woman's slender fingers. Their faces couldn't help but darken. As soon as Xianxia got out of the car, she saw the villagers gathered at the entrance of the village. She couldn't help but be startled, and then she politely smiled at them. This smile was like 100 flowers blooming. Some people even felt a little dizzy. This big sister looks really good when she smiles, just like the beautiful princess dolls on TV. Chapter 1290. A few children surrounded Xianxia and chattered, their faces full of yearning. Yu was blocked by the crowd and couldn't see what was going on at the entrance of the village. He could only hear the sounds of exclamations coming one after another. Red Sparrow followed beside him. She was afraid that the crowd would squeeze him, so she lowered her body and hugged him with one hand while using the other to push the crowd aside. Her strength was really amazing. With just a wave of her hand, a burly man was pushed aside by her as if she was a rich girl. The man almost fell over. He turned around and was about to curse when he saw Red Sparrow's cold eyes. He was so scared that he immediately shut up. Red Sparrow was very tall at 1.8 meters, and had an extremely domineering aura. When Yu saw this scene, he thought to himself, the women of mercenary paradise are really different. He thought that Lisa was already amazing enough. He didn't expect Red Sparrow to be one of the top female devils in mercenary paradise. His valiant martial strength, coupled with his pair of ice-cold eyes, was extremely frightening. Yu. Ling Ling's voice suddenly came from the crowd. When she saw Yu, her eyes widened and she hurriedly called out to him. The slightly urgent shout was so abrupt in the crowd that it startled Xianxia. Yu? She seemed to have heard a child call out Yu's name. Where was Yu? Xianxia hurriedly walked toward the crowd. Wuxia grabbed her and pulled her back to his side. What's wrong? Don't walk around. Wuxia glanced at Minyu from the corner of his eyes. Why are there so many people around? Minyu broke out in a cold sweat. He turned around and looked at the crowd helplessly. As soon as his car stopped, he heard someone in the crowd shout, "The big boss of the village is here." Not long after, the entrance was surrounded by the villagers who had heard of it. Chairman Mu, please wait for a moment. I'll go and evacuate the crowd, Minyu said and walked forward with his men. Suddenly, a commotion broke out in the crowd. As the crowd dispersed, Yu saw Wuxia and Xianxia. She was surprised and shouted, "Daddy, Mommy!" When Xianxia heard the voice, she looked in the direction of the voice. When she saw Yu in Zhu Kei's arms, her expression changed and she walked towards him with a smile. Wuxia also saw Yu. He gently pushed aside the people in front of him and walked towards Zhu Quebec. Everyone was dumbstruck. When they regained their senses, the picturesque beauty had already hugged the child tightly in her arms. The man who looked unapproachable also walked over. He reached out and took the child from the woman's arms. Only then did everyone realize that these two people were the child's parents. Everyone was surprised. What a young father and mother! This woman looked so young. She was probably in her early 20s. She was so delicate that if it weren't for her mature appearance, one would think that she was a high school student who had just graduated. Then, look at this man. It was no wonder that this child was born with such an exquisite and handsome appearance. He had an elegant and noble temperament. It turned out that he had inherited his father's deep facial features and noble temperament. Chapter 1291. As for the other ladies, they began to feel jealous of Xianxia. She was young and beautiful, had such a handsome and wealthy husband, and had such a handsome and adorable son. She could be said to be a winner in life. Why didn't they have such a good opportunity? As for the men, they looked at each other. Daddy? Mommy? It was the first time that the villagers heard such a westernized term. This person from the city was indeed different. In the main hall of the Zhao family, Li Ru sat uneasily in her seat as she looked at the man and woman in front of her who were dressed in bright and beautiful clothes. She seemed to be a little restless. Lingling and Lil Pi were nestled next to her. They closed their mouths nervously and looked timidly at Wuxia and Xianxia who were sitting in the guest seat. Li Ru was secretly guessing their identities. Earlier on, she found out from Yu that the handsome man in front of her was his father and the beautiful woman was his mother. Li Ru was extremely surprised. She had never expected Yu's parents to be so young. Moreover, they were a perfect match and looked like aristocrats. Hence, she couldn't help but feel a little awkward sitting in front of them. She felt ashamed of her own inferiority. However, from a certain point of view, it wasn't that surprising. The first time she saw Yu, she knew that his parents wouldn't be too bad if they could give birth to such a cute and handsome child. Now that she saw them, she was really amazed. When Xianxia saw Li Ru, she knew that this simple and honest woman in front of her was the one who saved her son. She hugged her gratefully and thanked her again and again. Li Ru was trembling with fear. She didn't even dare to hold Xianxia's hand for fear of dirtying it. Xianxia didn't know what she was thinking. She held her hand and smiled gently. This made Li Ru feel an inexplicable sense of inferiority. She hurriedly welcomed them into the house. Li Ru served them tea and said carefully, "It's just plain tea. I hope you don't mind." "You're too polite." Xianxia smiled. Li Ru's face turned even redder. She rubbed her hands on her apron and returned to her seat. However, she seemed inexplicably uneasy. Lingling suddenly said sincerely, Yu, your mother is so beautiful." The boy's lips curled into a smile when he heard that. Xianxia smiled at Lingling when she saw her hiding timidly. Seeing Xianxia smile at her, Lingling blushed and asked shyly, "Beautiful auntie, are you here to take Yu home?" Xianxia smiled and said, Thank you for taking care of Yu for the past 2 days. Today, I'm here to bring Yu home." Ling suddenly felt a little reluctant to part with him. At the side, Dowd suddenly said sarcastically, "Humph! He was a jinx. If it wasn't for him, father wouldn't have died. He was the one who caused father's death." As soon as he finished speaking, the boy's expression changed. Li Ru and Ling froze. Li Ru looked at Xianxia's shocked expression and immediately scolded Dowd, "Don't spout nonsense." "Mother, I'm not spouting nonsense. He was the one who caused father's death." Dowd whined pitifully. "What do you mean?" Wuxia furrowed his brows and his handsome eyes flashed with a cold light. Dowd glanced at him and shrunk timidly to one side. She seemed to be extremely afraid of his cold aura. She even stuttered when she spoke. Chapter 1292. I'm not spouting nonsense. If not for this troublemaker, father wouldn't have died. As soon as she finished speaking, Dowd felt a lump in her throat. She grabbed her mother's clothes and cried sadly. Li Ru's face was full of awkwardness. Ling, who was standing at the side, seemed to have lost all her strength at the mention of this sad matter. Her eyes reddened. Deep down, she knew that this matter had nothing to do with Yu, but if not for Yu, her father would be fine. However, she was very clear about gratitude and grudges. She did not blame him. Dowd, however, was not as clear-minded as her. Having lost her father at such a young age, she put all the blame on Yu. Yu pursed his lips and snuggled into Xianxia's embrace. His eyelashes drooped a little forlornly. He was obviously a little sad too. Li Ru immediately tried to smooth things over. The child is immature and said some unruly things. Please don't take it to heart. What exactly happened? Xianxia keenly sensed that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. She wanted to get to the bottom of it. When Li Ru heard this, she sighed but did not say anything. She did not blame Yu, but the pillar of the family had collapsed. As a widow and an orphan with 2 children, she really did not know what to do in the future. Yu had instructed Vermilion Bird to give her a sum of money. She refused to accept it no matter what. Vermilion Bird thought that he was being courteous and said that there were a few million yuan in the envelope, which included Zhao Xiangjuan's funeral expenses and some compensation. She regretfully said that a human life could not be measured by money, but at the same time, on behalf of Yun Tianyu, she conveyed that if there was anything she needed in the future, just let her know. Li Ru's tears fell the next second. It turned out that the collapse of the family's pillar in the village was not something that could be measured by money. What was the use of money? In Anyang village, the rice that every household ate was grown in their own fields, the firewood was chopped from the mountains, and the oil was obtained from the oil mill. All of this required a man to bear the responsibility. She was an orphan and a widow. Without a man to support her in the family, she would definitely be bullied. Who knew if someone would gossip behind her back? Today, as soon as she left the house, someone followed her behind and scolded her for being a jinx. Her in-laws had already spat on her because of Zhao Xiangjuan's death. Li Ru's heart was bitter. Dowd leaned against him with red eyes. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. When Yu saw this, she couldn't bear it and whispered into Wuxia's ear, "Daddy, Uncle Zhao's death is indeed related to me. If it wasn't for me, the Zhao family wouldn't have fallen into such a miserable state. Bring them back to the capital." Wuxia frowned and looked at him. "What's going on?" "It's him." When Yu mentioned this name, the anger in her eyes could no longer be concealed. Even if he did not find out the identity of these assassins, he judged that they were most likely the pursuers sent by Mu Lianjue. It seemed that they had the intention of dying together. These people did not leave any leeway for them and did not care about life or death. If not for Zhao Xiangjuan, he might not have been able to tell whether he was dead or alive. Yu whispered in his ear and recounted what happened after he was rescued by Zhao Xiangjuan in a concise manner. Chapter 1293. This Mu Lianjue was really gutsy. He actually dared to kill a child. He even sent out so many vicious assassins. How ruthless! How ruthless! Everyone who came from the Mu family was so ruthless. Xianxia could not hear what Yu and Wuxia were whispering to each other, but just by looking at the man's sullen face, she was frightened by the intimidating aura he exuded. "What's wrong?" she asked softly as she covered the back of his hand. Mu Yaja sneered inwardly. His murderous intent was boiling, but he quickly regained his composure. Nothing, he replied. He did not want her to be involved in this matter. Mu Yaja said to Li Ru, "First of all, I'd like to express my regret about this matter. No matter what the reason is, we'll take responsibility for it. If you're willing, we'll bring you to the capital. How about it?" The capital? Li Ru was a little restless. This isn't appropriate, is it? After bringing you to the capital, I'll arrange a place for you to stay and the best education for the two children. Min Yu, who was at the side, said, "Please put it down. Since Chairman Mu has put this on the table, he'll arrange the best place for you to stay. Not to mention anything else, you and the two children won't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. After all, you've done the little master a favor, so please let us repay your kindness." Lingling's eyes widened in shock when she heard this. Min Yu continued, "Forgive me for being blunt, but Chairman Mu made this arrangement because your husband passed away and the family has lost its pillar of support. He's afraid that you and the two children will be bullied, so he made this arrangement. Even if you don't think for yourself, you should think for the two children." Li Ru was speechless when she heard this and could only carefully accept it. Thank you, Boss Mu. However, we'll have to wait until the funeral is over before we can consider the next step. Here, I'd like to thank Boss Mu for his kindness. In the end, according to Yu Yu's decision, after Li Ru settled everything here, she would settle them down in the capital. Yun Shishir carried Yu Yu into the room and carefully checked his injuries. However, when she saw the wound on his shoulder caused by the animal trap, her eyes immediately turned red. She couldn't hold back her guilt and her tears fell. Yu Yu sighed helplessly. He cupped her face and carefully wiped the tears off her face. "Mommy, you're already in your 20s. Why do you still cry so much? Don't cry, okay? When you cry, my heart hurts so much that it feels numb." Yun Shishir did not know whether to laugh or cry at his self-righteous words. When she thought about how he got all these injuries, she pursed her lips in heartache. Holding back her tears, she grabbed his hand and slapped it twice on the back of his hand. "Yu Yu, you're naughty. All right, it's Yu Yu who's naughty and made Mommy worry." Yu Yu's eyes curved into crescents as he looked at her dotingly. His eyes seemed to be filled with a gentle smile and were full of tenderness. Yun Shishir said, "You always make Mommy worry. You shouldn't have swapped places with Mommy that day." "Mommy is injured." Yu Yu said honestly, "I can't just stand by and watch Mommy get hurt." Yun Shishir's heart was deeply touched. Yu Yu. Chapter 1294. Yu Yu looked up at her, then jumped into her arms and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Mommy, I really love you. No matter what it is, as long as you're happy, I'm willing to do anything." Yun Shishir sighed in her heart. This child was so precocious and could even say such touching words. She had mixed feelings. She didn't know if she should be touched or feel complicated. She gently caressed his face. "Yu, Mommy loves you too. She loves you more than life itself." Yu Yu quietly gazed at her face and asked carefully, "Then, no matter what Yu becomes, Mommy will still love Yu Yu?" "No matter what Yu Yu becomes, Mommy will still love Yu Yu. That's enough." Yu Yu smiled contentedly and hugged her tightly. "Where's Xiaoichin? Are the wounds on your body better?" "Better. That guy's body is so strong. He can already get out of bed and jump around." However, out of consideration, she didn't bring Xiaoichin with her. Because of this, little Ichen was probably still sulking at this moment. The family of three decided to head back to the capital after lunch. Li Ru prepared a table of sumptuous dishes. In order to entertain them, she served all kinds of fish and meat. She even slaughtered a rooster that hadn't crowed yet. The free-range chicken that they raised at home was very tender. When Yun Shishir and Yu Yu walked out, Mu Yaja was already seated. However, Li Ru, Lingling, and Lil Pi seemed a little uneasy. They sat in their seats and secretly sized up Mu Yaja's handsome side profile. Lingling carefully sized up Mu Yaja. In her heart, she was a little envious of Yu Yu. Yu Yu's father was so handsome. He sat expressionlessly on the wooden bench. His back was straight and his whole body was cold and solemn. There was an indescribable aura around him, and he exuded the aura of a famous aristocrat. Even in such a shabby and backward setting, it was difficult to conceal his noble and cold aura. Li Ru looked at him and sighed in her heart. Indeed, one could not compare with another. Some people were blessed by the heavens. After Mu Yaja sat down, Lingling and Daodu became much more restrained. He raised his hand slightly and took a sip of tea. Lingling was so scared that she didn't dare to move. She stared at him until he put down the teacup. Only then did she carefully take a sip of tea. Yun Shirshir and Yu Yu also sat down. However, since Mu Yaja didn't say anything and didn't move his chopsticks, the others didn't dare to move. Yun Shirshir glanced at everyone's expressions and knew that Mu Yaja's aura was too strong, causing them to tremble in fear. Hence, she said to Mu Yaja, "You seem to have scared the two children." The moment she spoke, it startled him. Mu Yaja was originally thinking about something, but after being reminded by Yun Shirshir, he raised his head and looked at Li Ru and the two children on the table. He looked a little cautious. Yun Shirshir smiled and said, "Sister Li, the three children are hungry. Don't just wait. Let's eat, or the dishes will get cold." Li Ru asked carefully, "Boss Mu seems to be dissatisfied with the dishes. Is it because you're used to eating luxurious food and eating exotic delicacies that you can't find any dishes to your liking in this countryside?" Chapter 1295. No, he's not a picky eater. Don't judge him by his looks. He's always been like this. He doesn't like to talk and doesn't smile. After a pause, she said helplessly, "Look, big sister Li. There's so much food on the table. It'll be a waste if we can't finish it all." With that, Yun Shirshir glared at Mu Yaja. Mu Yaja smiled and said, "Big sister Li, don't be so busy. Let the children eat. I was just distracted. I didn't mean anything else." With that, Mu Yaja picked up a drumstick for Lingling and Lil Pi. Then, he picked up a few pieces of chicken and placed them in Yun Shirshir and Yu Yu's bowls. Li Ru was flattered by Mu Yaja calling her Big Sister Li. When she saw him put the drumsticks in Lingling and Lil Pi's bowls, she became even more nervous. She pinched the corner of her shirt and said nervously, "Boss Mu, can you give Yu Yu one of these drumsticks?" Lingling stared at the drumstick in her bowl. Her mouth was gluttonous. Just as she was about to pick it up with her chopsticks and take a bite, Li Ru glared at her. She immediately stopped moving and pursed her lips in embarrassment. She knew that Li Ru wanted to save the drumstick for Yu Yu. Yun Shirshir smiled and tried to ease the atmosphere. "Big sister Li, what are you doing? Look at how scared the children are. If the children like drumsticks, let them have them. Our Yu Yu doesn't like drumsticks." Yu Yu quickly added, "Auntie, I really don't like drumsticks. Let Lingling have them." "That's right. Big sister Li, let's not be so polite. You treat us as family. If you're so polite, we'll feel uncomfortable," Yun Shirshir said helplessly. Only then did Li Ru nod and let out a few simple and honest laughs. Mu Yaja interacted with Lingling and Lil Pi from time to time. Although his tone was cold, his gaze was gentler. Every time Lingling spoke to him, her face would turn red. "This uncle is so handsome. Especially those eyes, they were deep and mesmerizing with long eyelashes." When he spoke, the corners of his eyes were slightly curved, revealing a playful and devilish charm, which really made her heart jump. Li Ru was even more flattered. She had heard from the villagers that the man's appearance today was very impressive. She then recalled what the man's assistant had said to them. He had even said that they would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Then how powerful must this man be? He must be a big boss with a good net worth. Eating at the same table as the big boss, it was inevitable that she would feel reserved. Mu Yaja took a sip of the chicken soup. Li Ru had specially stewed chicken soup for you. The chicken soup tasted pretty good, so Mu Yaja scooped up another spoonful and sent it into Yu Yu's mouth. He didn't forget to carefully blow on it and dip it in. When he was sure it was cold, he fed it to him. Yu Yu drank a mouthful happily. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "Is it good?" "Yes, it's good. Auntie's cooking is amazing." Yu Yu was not stingy with his praise. Li Ru blushed and tried to avoid it. Wuxia scooped up another spoonful of soup and fed it to Yu. Xianxia looked at this scene and suddenly felt a little dazed. This was probably Wuxia's most charming moment. When he looked at Yu, the gentleness and adoration in his eyes were almost unconcealable. Chapter 1296. This man had always given her the impression that he was domineering and cold. However, at this moment, the sharpness and coldness of the past had faded from his body. When he looked at Yu, he lowered his head and the tenderness in his eyes was almost overflowing. When he smiled, he was really the most charming. His sexy thin lips were slightly curved into a mesmerizing curve. Ling Ling was extremely envious. She looked at him eagerly and suddenly felt a trace of disappointment in her heart. Suddenly, a tender little hand holding a pair of chopsticks picked up a piece of vegetable and placed it in her bowl. When she looked up, she saw Yu smiling and saying, "You can't just eat meat. You should eat more vegetables." His smile was so warm. It warmed her heart. Ling Ling nodded. "Okay." At this moment, the outside of the Zhao family's house was filled with people. Many people were asking about the young couple's background. After dinner, they sat and chatted for a while before Wuxia decided to leave. Li Ru politely asked him to stay. "Don't you want to stay for a while longer?" Wuxia said, "I won't take up any more of your time." "It's not a problem at all. There's no such thing." Li Ru was still enthusiastic. "Sister Li, there's still a child waiting at home," Xianxia said with a smile. After exchanging a few pleasantries with Li Ru nodded. Before leaving, she grabbed Yu and stuffed the envelope into his arms. "My dear child, I can't accept this much money. Give the money to your parents and tell them that I can't accept it." She was so simple and honest that when she took out the check from the envelope and saw that it was a few million, she was immediately shocked. She even felt that the envelope was so hot. In her entire life, she had never seen a fraction of the amount on the check. However, Yu pushed her hand back. "Auntie, just accept it. This is a small token of my appreciation. Just accept Daddy's goodwill." "This, Auntie, thank you, but I'm also very sorry about what happened this time. However, since Uncle is no longer around, I will take on the responsibility of taking care of you." Yu said obediently. Li Ru's heart warmed and she was touched. Tears welled up in her eyes and her lips trembled, but she couldn't say anything in the end. When they left, Li Ru followed behind the car for some distance. Ling Ling followed beside her and kept waving at Yu. Yu leaned against the car window and looked out. She smiled and waved. Yu returned to her seat and hugged Xianxia's arm. Satisfaction and anticipation appeared on her face. How wonderful! He was finally home. At that moment, it was as if a beam of sunlight had shone into her heart, bright and warm. When they got home, Xianxia heard the sound of a car horn. He stood at the entrance of the villa and stood on his tiptoes to look around. The car came to a steady stop at the entrance. The moment Yu got out of the car, Wuxia saw him and immediately pounced on him excitedly, hugging him tightly in his arms. He hugged Yu so tightly, as if he was afraid that he would lose a precious treasure again. He hugged Yu tightly in his arms. Everything seemed so unreal, as if it was a dream. However, when he felt the real warmth from Yu's body, Wuxia finally believed that it wasn't a dream. "Yu, you're home. I've been waiting for you." Wuxia felt guilty. He hadn't been able to lead the rescue team to the scene in time. Chapter 1297. Wuxia had always been strong. Even when he was seriously injured, he did not shed a single tear. However, when he held Yu in his arms, Wuxia's eyes welled up. He could not help but tear up. "From now on, let's not be separated anymore," Wuxia said solemnly. Yu was almost suffocated by his tight embrace. "Brother, be gentler. You're hurting me," Yu said helplessly. Wuxia loosened his arms. Before Yu could catch his breath, Wuxia hugged him tightly again. "Yu, I promise to protect you. It's all my fault that you're injured so badly this time. Brother, are you blaming me?" "You're hurting my wound," he reminded him weakly. Wuxia was shocked and quickly let go of him. Yu glanced at his flustered expression and could not help but burst out laughing. Mu Yichen's face froze and he asked with a strange expression, "What are you laughing at?" "Brother, I realize that you're so funny." Yu covered her mouth and giggled. "What do you mean?" "It's so mushy," Yu said. Mu Yichen smacked his lips and his heart turned cold. Yu touched his hair helplessly. "Good boy. Didn't I go home?" Mu Yichen's face turned red strangely. However, he was greedy for the warmth of Yu's palm and smiled. Xianxia and Mu Yaja walked over. When they saw the affectionate look on the two little guys' faces, they looked at each other. "Why are you so lovey-dovey?" Xianxia couldn't help but tease. She felt gratified to see that the two little guys had such a good relationship. He could still remember how Yu had rejected Mu Yichen when the two of them had first met. They were not close to each other at all. Now that the relationship between the two brothers was so good, she felt a lot more relieved. Yu could only rub his forehead helplessly at her teasing. However, he heard Xianxia say, "Xiao Yichen, you looked like a woman in ancient times who longed for her husband to come home." Mu Yaja added, "The Amma stone." Xianxia immediately agreed, "Yes, the Amma stone." Xiao Yichen didn't know what the Amma rock was. Yu, who was standing at the side, understood. Her face froze for a moment, and she said angrily, "Mommy." He pouted and pretended to be angry. Xiao Yichen didn't understand. "Yu, what does Mommy mean by the Amma stone?" Yu said seriously, "You don't understand. Don't ask." Mu Yichen pouted dejectedly. Xianxia was even more amused. She went forward and hugged the two children. These two babies were so funny. She secretly laughed in her heart and couldn't help but reach out to scratch Mu Yichen's nose. Yu and Mu Yichen looked at each other and smiled. When they got home, Xianxia specially cooked a sumptuous dinner for the two children. She hadn't cooked for a long time, so her culinary skills were a little rusty. Naturally, she couldn't compare to Yu's culinary skills. However, she put in a lot of effort, and the taste was not bad. Compared to before, her culinary skills had improved. Mu Yichen was full of expectations for Xianxia's culinary skills. When the dishes were served on the table, he couldn't wait to taste them. Then he raised his eyebrows in approval. "Mommy's culinary skills are amazing." "Really? Then eat more." Xianxia was encouraged. Mu Yaja, who was standing at the side, didn't hold back and said, "It's just passable." Chapter 1298. Upon hearing that, Yu crossed his arms in dissatisfaction and glared at him. "Daddy, I'll give you another chance to reevaluate this." The threat in his eyes was indescribable. Mu Yaja replied without batting an eyelid, "It's not bad." Xianxia, Mu Yichen, Yu felt much better upon hearing that, and his expressions softened a little. He held the bowl in his hands. The rice in the bowl was warm and tasty. He suddenly felt that this happiness was not easy to come by. It was probably because he had gone through hardships that he knew how precious a peaceful happiness was. After dinner, Mu Yichen pulled Yu to his room. He had a lot of questions to ask him. Yu gave him a brief overview of what had happened in the past 2 days. Mu Yichen, on the other hand, was shocked by what he heard. When he learned that Mu Lianjue had sent people to hunt him down, he clenched his fists in anger. That Mu Lianjue is too despicable. He's just like a clown. He probably knows that he's lost, so he needs to jump around a little before he can feel at ease. Yu snorted coldly. D***. Mu Yichen was so angry that he was at a loss for words. He could not wait to tear him into pieces with his own hands. Yu dialed Li Hanlin's number. When the call got through, the latter thanked the heavens and expressed his relief when he learned that he had returned home. "Director Yun, you're back. I was so worried." Li Hanlin was really scared out of his wits by what had happened to him. Yu replied faintly, "I've troubled you with a lot of things during my absence." "Director Yun, these are all part of my job. There's no trouble at all." After a pause, Li Hanlin probed cautiously, "Director Yun, is it convenient for you to make a trip to the office now? There's something urgent waiting for you to settle." "It's not convenient for me now." "Ugh." Yu frowned slightly. Judging from Li Hanlin's tone, it seemed like there was indeed something important. He thought for a moment and decided to make a trip to the company. Hence, he went to look for Wuxia and bluntly explained the reason. "Daddy, I'm going to the company. I need you to cover for me, okay?" he asked. Wuxia frowned. "You've just returned home and you're still injured. What are you planning to do?" Something important," Yu emphasized, "but I don't want Mommy to know about my identity for the time being. So, if necessary, I need you to cover for me." Wuxia pondered for a moment. "Alright, I'll send you to the entrance of the company, but it can't take too long." "Alright." Hence, Wuxia covered up for Yu. He said that the child had returned and was craving for desserts from the famous shop in the city center. Xianxia wanted to go with him. However, Wuxia asked her to stay at home and accompany Xianxia. Xianxia was still injured and needed to rest. He could not move around too much, so Xianxia agreed. Wuxia successfully covered for him and sent him to Liji's headquarters. Yu asked him to wait for him outside the company and to call him when he arrived. Wuxia smiled and teased, "Can't I enter your company, Director Yun?" "Of course. After all, there are some business secrets that I can't let you know." Yu pretended to be arrogant and crossed his arms. Wuxia ruffled his hair. "Go ahead, I'll wait for your call." "Okay." Chapter 1299. As soon as Yu entered the office, he saw Gong Jie standing in front of the window. He was wearing a snow-white military suit, which made him look tall and slender. He stood in front of the window expressionlessly with a cigar in his hand. He seemed to have been waiting for him for a long time. Li Hanlin saw him and went up to him. "President Yun, you're here." "Yes, what's the matter?" Yu asked. Li Hanlin raised his head with a complicated expression and looked in the direction of Gong Jie. Yu followed his line of sight and looked at Gong Jie. He asked in a deep voice, "Young Master Gong, you're looking for me?" Gong Jie turned around, but his face was gloomy. He looked at Yu with a pair of deep, unfathomable eyes. "You're back?" "Yes." Yu smiled and sat down on the sofa. "Young Master Gong, your subordinates made a lot of mistakes in this operation." Gong Jie's expression changed. "They weren't careful enough and made some mistakes. I suffered a little. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me?" Gong Jie asked. "How do you want me to compensate you?" "Assign that vermilion bird of yours to me." The moment the boy opened his mouth, he laid out a shocking condition. "Juke?" The man tugged at his lips and asked nonchalantly, "Why? Have you taken a liking to her?" "Yes," Yu said bluntly. "Other than her, give me another secret guard. What do you think of this condition?" He had a motive for making such a request. With Lisa by his side, his safety was guaranteed. However, he had to find a way to arrange a secret guard to protect his mommy when necessary. After all, he didn't want something like this to happen a second time. The mercenaries of Mercenary Paradise were of high quality. Ordinary soldiers from the army couldn't compare to them. They were all assassins who walked in the dark and had outstanding martial art skills. Naturally, he couldn't be at ease with them protecting his mommy. Therefore, he proposed such a condition to Gong Jie. Gong Jie smiled. Regarding his request, he was straightforward. "Since you asked me for the person, I have no reason to refuse. From now on, Vermilion Bird and Jie will be at your disposal." "All right." After a pause, Yu asked, "Where's Lisa?" Gong Jie said, "Are you concerned about her? Ask her about her situation." Gong Jie's lips curled into a cold smile. He said expressionlessly, "She's just a bodyguard. Even if she's dead, you don't have to ask anything." "She died?" Gong Jie said coldly, "Not dead. It's just a small injury, it won't take her life." Yu frowned. "Why are you looking for me?" Gong Jie raised his eyebrows and suddenly walked to the poster. His gaze fell on the poster hanging on the wall. His thin lips escaped from his thin lips. "Who is this woman?" Yu was shocked. His gaze fell on the poster as well. It was the poster he had chosen when Xianxia was filming. He felt that this poster was especially beautiful and elegant. Just looking at it was pleasing to the eye. Therefore, he chose this poster and enlarged it to make it into a poster. He hung it on the wall, facing his desk. When he raised his head, he happened to be able to see this pictorial, which made him feel at ease. When he heard Gong Jie's question, he became suspicious. He frowned slightly and was a little wary. Why are you asking about this? I'm just asking. Chapter 1300. He stared at Yu for a long time before slowly approaching him and squatting down in front of him. His gaze never left Yu's small face. His facial features and eyes were very similar to the woman in the poster. He had his suspicions when he first saw Yu. However, thinking that it might just be a coincidence, he did not think too much about it. It was only when he saw the huge poster hanging on the wall in Yun Tianyo's office that he became suspicious. The woman in the poster had such similar facial features and gentle eyes. It was as if they were the same as the shadow in his memory. This woman and the little lad should have some sort of relationship. If not, why would he hang this woman's poster in his office? What was more suspicious was that the little lad's facial features were very similar to this woman's. They looked like mother and son. Could it be that this woman was his? Gong Jie was so agitated that his shoulders and fingertips could not help but tremble. He suddenly held Yu's face and caressed every inch of his face with his slender fingers. A complicated look appeared on his face. Actually, when I first met you, I vaguely suspected your identity. Gong Jie said this firmly. He slowly raised his eyes and met Yun Tianyo's startled gaze. What suspicion? Don't you think that you and I look alike? Gong Jie raised a brow and his thin lips parted as he asked this. Yu's gaze landed on his face again. It was more than similar. Yu was extremely sensitive. Hence, when he first met Gong Jie, he had some suspicions. However, at that time, he was thinking about his mommy's matter and did not think much about it. He heard that his mommy had a younger brother who was in a car accident and disappeared without a trace. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Now, the man standing in front of him looked so similar to his mommy. It was hard for Yu not to think about it. However, compared to Gong Jie, his attitude was more conservative. Indeed, there are some similarities, but what are you trying to say? He did not go straight to the point and tell him the identity of the person in the poster. His mommy's identity was sensitive. Moreover, the man standing in front of him was a core member of the Hurricane Group, the #1 mercenary empire. He was a very dangerous person. What if he was not? Without confirmation, he would not reveal his mommy's identity to him or anyone else. This was his protective measure for his mommy. Gong Jie sized him up. With him. He was eager to verify, but he was afraid of being disappointed again. However, with a little bit of hope in his heart, he casually said, I'm looking for someone. Yu was slightly taken aback. A woman. At the mention of this person, there was a rare tenderness in his usually cold and unruly eyes. Although I don't know if I'll be able to find her in this lifetime, I don't want to give up on any hope, regardless of whether she's dead or alive. She is very important to me. A woman? Yu asked tentatively. Chapter 1301. Although someone told me that she's already dead, I don't believe it. There seemed to be a faint bond between bloodlines. Some people said that blood was thicker than water. Twins would form a bond similar to telepathy. Back then, he was told that his sister had died in a car accident. By the time he woke up, he was already taken away by the Hurricane Group. That was the first time he met his biological father, Gong Xiaoing. His father told him that when the people from the Hurricane Group took him away from the hospital, his sister had already been declared dead. The doctor said that she showed signs of dying on the way to the hospital. Her heartbeat was already gone by the time they reached the hospital. They did a series of emergency treatments, but it was too late. Gong Jie could not believe it and was downcast for a while. His sixth sense was telling him that his sister was still alive. He had also met a woman who looked like him. However, after further verification, the final result was disappointing. Gradually, he began to believe that his sister was no longer in this world. However, when he saw the huge poster in Yun Tianyo's office, his heart seemed to have sensed something and was filled with hope again. Yu was silent for a while before he made up his mind and slowly explained, the woman in the poster is a celebrity. Celebrity? Gong Jie was stunned. What's your relationship with her? If you must ask what kind of relationship they have, Yu Yu's face instantly revealed a fanboy's expression. I'm her little fan. Gong Jie was silent. Li Hanlin, who was standing at the side, was speechless. Just a fan? That's all. Gong Jie stared at him suspiciously. Yu Yu gave him an elegant smile, hiding his thoughts well. If the person you're looking for is her, I can use my connections to investigate her identity for you. Gong Jie coldly said. No need. If that was the case, he would send someone to investigate. With that, he stood up abruptly and strode off. Yu Yu watched him leave expressionlessly with a frown. Agent Li, he called out. Li Hanlin walked to his side and squatted slightly. Director Yun, what are your orders? Lock down everything. Don't let him find out anything about my mommy. But Li Hanlin was suddenly suspicious. Why do you want to hide her identity from young Master Gong? Yu Yu faintly answered, because before I can confirm his relationship with my mommy, I won't let him get close to her. I don't understand your intention. Yu Yu squinted at him. Understood. But if it's proven that my mommy is the person he's been looking for, then it's a different story. Li Hanlin was curious. How do you prove it? Yu Yu turned around with a smile on his face. He looked at Li Hanlin and suddenly raised his hand. Between his fingers was a strand of silver hair. This was what he had stolen from the man's head while the latter was in a daze earlier. Take it and do a DNA paternity test. Let me know when the results are out. Chapter 1302. When Mu Yaja and Yu Yu returned home, Xiao Yichen was already asleep. Yun Shirshir was in the flower bed, holding a pair of scissors in one hand as she trimmed the flowers. The sky was gradually turning dark. In the evening, she was half squatting by the flower bed. She held the flower bed with one hand and gently fiddled with it, trimming away the sparse branches from time to time. The injuries on her body had not healed yet. The corners of her lips were a little disfigured, but she was pursing her thin lips. Apart from being serious, her clear and beautiful face shone with a jade-like radiance. It was as if everything had been peaceful over the years. Most of the time, this woman was as beautiful as a flower, but her beauty was not ostentatious. Most of the time, she breathed quietly and lived quietly. She was so quiet that she was like a cat that had restrained its claws and arrogance. She was quietly nestled in a corner, as if she was aloof from worldly affairs. In her tranquility, she had restrained all her sharpness. Mu Yaja leaned against the door and watched her silently. She did not seem to notice his presence and was focused on studying the flowers. Mu Yaja slowly walked toward her. Yun Shirshir suddenly sensed the footsteps behind her. She looked up and saw Mu Yaja hugging her waist from behind. His movements were very gentle as he pulled her into his embrace. Caught off guard, the scissors fell to the ground. Yu Yu stood at the door and watched for a while. The corners of his lips curled into a gentle smile before he walked away quietly. Yun Shirshir was a little shocked by his sudden appearance. She looked up and could not help but glare at him angrily. You only know how to scare people? She glared at him with some dissatisfaction. She bit her lip and suddenly smiled gently. Even her eyes were like water, making his heart skip a beat. Mu Yaja could not help but lower his head and give her a light peck. In this beautiful flower bed, the faint fragrance in the air captured her sweet breath. Amidst the beautiful flowers, he held her gently in his arms. His large palm gently caressed her face and rubbed her eyelids. Mu Yaja lowered his eyes and looked at her. As he narrowed his eyes, his thick and long eyelashes fell into her eyes. The poignant night gave birth to some warmth and charm. He caressed her face and began to kiss her gently. His thin lips were pressed tightly against her tender red mouth, gently rubbing against it. However, he was not in a hurry to enter. Instead, he lingered on her pink lips more often. The soft texture like a jelly made him a little lost in this gentle whirlpool. He kissed her even more deeply and with more strength. The woman in his arms was like a budding rose, slowly blooming. A beautiful fragrance could be smelled with a light sniff. His slender fingers lifted a strand of her hair. He closed his eyes and pushed the kiss even deeper. Yun Shirshir was a little nervous. In a low voice, she muttered, "Don't. The children are here." If the two children saw this intimate scene, she would feel quite embarrassed. Wuxia harumphed. The children are tired. They're all asleep. He hugged her body with his hand and started to touch her body gently. Then he could not help but harumph. Why have you lost weight again? She had lost so much weight. During the few days in the hospital, she ate very little. Moreover, this woman seemed to have a thin physique. No matter how much she was fed, it was hard for her to gain more than a few pounds. But the speed at which she lost weight was very fast. He was a little dissatisfied. This woman was too thin. It was not good. Chapter 1303. Xianxia pouted and felt a little wronged. I've lost a little weight these days. But it's just as well. I won't have to lose weight when I'm filming a new drama soon. The camera would always magnify a person's size. Therefore, many celebrities would starve a few meals a few days before they went on screen to maintain their beautiful image in front of the camera. When she was filming The Green Apple, she gained a few kilograms for a few days. Qin Zhou ordered her to go on a diet and forced her to lose 3 kilograms in 2 days. Only then would she look good on screen. Wuxia was displeased. You don't have to lose weight. Gain some weight and your figure will be just right. But, with my physique, I don't seem to be more than 50 kilograms when I was at my fattest, Xianxia said gloomily. With her height of 1.65 meters, 50 kilograms could only be considered just right. Now, she was only slightly more than 90 kilograms. She was indeed a little too thin. Wuxia couldn't help but pinch her face a little harder. Xianxia slapped his hand away. It hurts. As soon as she said that, she yawned and felt sleepy. She seemed to be a little sleepy. Sleepy? He frowned and asked. Xianxia nodded. Then let's sleep together. Xianxia nodded. However, in the next second she was lifted up by Wuxia. Before she could react, she was carried in his arms like a princess. Wuxia looked at the woman in his arms and smiled elegantly. My wife, it's late. It's time to rest. Xianxia pursed her lips and smiled. She couldn't help but say, Who's your wife? She widened her eyes, which were full of anger. Her charming eyes were like silk, and her innocent look was extremely seductive. He couldn't help but lower his head and cover her lips again. He was reluctant to part with her. This time, she didn't dodge. Instead, she met his warm kiss head-on. She naturally wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him slowly. She mischievously used the tip of her tongue to trace the seam of his lips. Wuxia opened his mouth and sucked in a wisp of her spiritual fragrance. As they intertwined, his body gradually reacted. Xianxia smiled playfully. Unexpectedly, she reached out her hand and gently touched a certain sensitive area on his body. Then she pulled it away. She bit her lip and smiled. In her smile, there was a bit of slyness, a bit of charm, and a bit of playfulness. A strange shade of red flashed across Wuxia's face. He looked up and glared at her. How dare this woman provoke him? If she did that, she would easily get into trouble. He suspected that her actions were a silent invitation to him. Wuxia narrowed his eyes and bit her earlobe gently as a punishment. He whispered into her ear, Woman, are you playing with fire? In a way, this was also a form of initiative. A hint of panic flashed through Xianxia's eyes, and then she stammered, No. Then what were you doing? Xianxia was a little shy under his teasing gaze. Just now, she had only done it on a whim. Now, she was a little regretful. She covered her face in shame and stammered, I just wanted to test if your shaft was hard or not. She was acting shy. Wuxia smiled wickedly. Sometimes, this woman could be quite adorable. He lowered his voice and bit her ear. If you want to test, you can't test it like this. Chapter 1304. Xianxia peeked at him through the gaps between her fingers and covered her face in embarrassment. She felt a little embarrassing. Wuxia didn't know whether to laugh or cry at first. Then, he carried her back to the bedroom and carefully placed her on the bed. Concerned about the wounds on her body that hadn't healed yet, his movements were very careful, as if he was treating a precious and fragile object. In the next second, he took off her clothes. Xianxia immediately reached out to stop him. He said in a low voice, Don't move. She really didn't dare to move. Until he took off her outerwear, leaving only her cute and sexy underwear. Then his tall body pressed down on her. He placed it on her body, but deliberately lightened the weight. Even so, Xianxia still pushed him away in embarrassment. Wuxia, you're so heavy, a height of 188 meters and a weight of more than 70 kilograms was a very heavy weight to her. Wuxia smiled mischievously. Then he reached out and hugged her. With a flip of his body, he switched positions with her and helped her sit on top of him. With this, Xianxia sat on top of him in a seductive position. Xianxia smiled sweetly. With a slight twist of her body, the straps on her bright and beautiful body slid down from her shoulders. When her clothes were half removed, that beautiful scene came into his view. Wuxia reached out and just happened to be able to grasp that pair of plump jade bunnies. Xianxia sensitively reached out and grabbed his hand. Then he held her hand in reverse and guided it to a certain spot. The moment her fingertips touched something hot, she was shocked and immediately retracted her hand. But who was the one who said that she wanted to try it? He grabbed her hand again and smiled mischievously. His deep eyes revealed some hidden meaning. You weren't at your best just now. Now, try it again. How does it feel? Those words really made one's heart skip a beat. She blushed at his teasing. She pursed her lips in shyness as her cheeks blushed a few shades of pink. It was just a teasing remark. Did he actually take it seriously? She was only joking, that's why she said that. No matter how bold she was, she wouldn't dare to play with fire on him. Hey, you're not allowed to go overboard. She mumbled softly as a warning to him. However, the man didn't think much of it and looked at her leisurely like an ancient overlord. He asked her casually, "Who's the one who's going overboard?" "It's you." She slapped his hand away and chuckled. "Let go of me." But her face. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze, and snorted in displeasure. "You're the one who provoked me first. I didn't want to touch you during this period of time, but now, you're in the wrong. Now that you're the one who started it, shouldn't you be responsible for extinguishing it?" Xianxia pouted disapprovingly and raised her eyebrows. It's more like I'm the one who's going to destroy you." "Destroy me? This woman. She's got guts. She actually wanted to destroy him." Wuxia curled his lips and kissed her perky butt. He kneaded it gently. This feeling was just right, but it made his brows relax slightly. He wanted to see who would be the one to destroy who. "Sure, why don't you give it a try?" Chapter 1305. Xianxia reached out to grab his careless hand. With a charming smile on her face, she looked like a seductive vixen. What greeted his eyes was a seductive scene. "Alright, stop fooling around. Sleep with me, okay?" She leaned over and laid on his body, hugging his shoulders and acting coquettishly. She was a little tired and wanted to rest. Unfortunately, his restless hands continued to roam all over her body, igniting a fire. It caused her body to react a little. Xianxia became increasingly frustrated and couldn't help pinching his face. Wuxia took a step further and asked, "How are we going to sleep?" Xianxia glared at him and rebuked, "Wuxia, can you be more serious?" However, the man hooked his arm around her jade-like neck and rubbed his lips against her ear. "Am I not serious enough? How do you want me to be serious, then? Tell me. Sleep with me obediently." Xianxia pressed his restless hand down and said, "Today. I really can't." The man raised a brow meaningfully as if he was deliberately teasing her. "Why can't I?" Xianxia was stunned. Seeing him chuckle softly as if he was teasing her, she instantly blushed. What a meaningful question. She pouted softly and coquettishly. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have ignited the fire. Spare me, okay?" "If you want me to spare you, sure." Wuxia pinched her cheeks and said seductively, "Say something nice, Call her something nice?" Xianxia racked her brains. "Yaxia? It doesn't sound nice." She said softly again. The man snorted. "It doesn't sound nice." Xianxia's face fell. She looked at him with some frustration and pursed her lips. For a moment, She didn't know what he wanted to hear. My dear husband, no. Not today. Why not? I won't give you another chance if you can't call out something nice. He snorted coldly and grabbed her by the throat. Then he reached his hand between her legs. Xianxia cried out in surprise. She dodged sensitively and grabbed his hand in a panic. She kissed his chiseled jaw and rubbed it intimately. My lord husbands. She gently called out. Her eyes were as gentle as water, and her gaze moved. The softest part of his heart was ruthlessly and accurately struck. In an instant, one side collapsed. Are you satisfied? She wrapped her arms around his shoulders as a flattering smile appeared on her face. Tonight I'll let you off. When he opened his mouth, it was an extra-legal benevolence. Xianxia cupped his handsome face and kissed it. He hugged her and placed her on the bed. Then he kissed her forehead and said, I'll take a shower first. You sleep first. I haven't showered either. Together. Her face heated up, and she rejected him on the spot. Wouldn't she be digging her own grave if she took a shower with him? Otherwise, when she wiped the gun and caught fire, the shower would become an impure one. This man was full of energy as if he never knew fatigue. However, she was really tired. Once her head hit the pillow, sleepiness overwhelmed her, and she fell asleep in the next second. Then you go shower first. He patted her butt and ordered her to take a shower first. Chapter 1306. It looked like she had really put in a lot of effort to guard against him. Wuxia curled his lips and smiled. He found it interesting. Finally, when he came out of the shower, this little woman was lying quietly on the bed, lazily resting her head on her arm. She had already fallen asleep. He got off the bed gently. First, he propped himself up, glanced at her, then reached out and pulled her into his embrace. She occupied his entire body. Hugging her, he lowered his head to look at her lazy and charming posture as she slept. Only then did the man smile comfortably. Only when he hugged her, the feeling that she belonged to him felt more real. Wuxia reached out his fingers with interest and gently caressed her soft and smooth cheeks. His long fingers gently circled her silky black hair a few times, twirling it around his fingertips. He played with it, but no matter how much he played, he couldn't get enough of it. He lowered his head and gently kissed her face. You're mine. He leaned against her ear and said these words in a deep voice. In her sleep, she seemed to be a little disturbed. She lazily reached out her hand to brush it away, but he held it with one hand. He looked deeply at her. Just looking at her sleeping face like this gave him an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. This was probably what he meant by having it. To be able to hug her to sleep, and to be able to see her sleepy face when she woke up, this kind of lifestyle was something he had never imagined. It was a little unreal, but now it was happening right in front of him. This gave him a deep and powerful sense of belonging. She belonged to him, and he belonged to her too. He stretched out his arm and let her rest her head on it. He also lay down and hugged her waist. Just like that, they fell into a dream together. The next day, when Xianxia woke up, it was already morning. She didn't know when, but the side of the bed was empty. He left without a sound. Xianxia's heart suddenly felt empty. When she completely woke up from her hazy sleep, she realized that he must have gone to the office. She got up, walked to the window, and pulled open the curtains. The sun was shining brightly outside. Today was a good day, with blue skies and white clouds. The capital had not seen such clear weather in a long time. Along with it, her mood after waking up earlier had also become much brighter. Xianxia entered the bathroom. After washing up, she walked out of the room and saw Yu walking out with a basket of clean clothes. Yu looked at her, smiled slightly, and his eyes softened. Mommy, you woke up so early? Daddy left early in the morning. He must have gone to the company. Xianxia nodded and suddenly glared at him. Xianxia looked at the clothes basket in his hand with some astonishment. Washing clothes? Yu explained. I woke up early today and had nothing to do, so I washed the clothes. Right now, I'm planning to go out and dry them. Xianxia smiled and immediately said, Mommy will dry them with you, okay? No need. Mommy's hand is injured, right? Since you're seriously injured, you should rest well. As Yu spoke, he glanced at the bandages on her wound, and his heart ached. Yun Shirshir's heart warmed. Her little warm boy was always so considerate. Chapter 1307. He pouted and blew gently with his little pink mouth. Transparent bubbles swelled up from the blowpipe and then floated in the air. Under the light of the sun, they refracted colorful illusions. Yu had made this blowpipe for fun when he was young. He used very simple tools to make a simple blowpipe. When Yu woke up, Xiao Yichen was also awake. He stood by the side and watched as Yu cleaned the house and washed the clothes. His injuries had not healed yet, and he did not know how to do housework. There was nothing he could do to help, so he stood by the side helplessly. Yu rummaged through the cabinets and took out a toy that he had made in the past. He also poured some soap water into it and let Xiao Yichen blow on it. Blowing bubbles was a childhood memory for many children. Yu rarely went out when he was young. He liked to lie on the windowsill and blow bubbles with his self-made blowpipe. He specially modified it and used the blowpipe he made to blow bubbles. They were big and round. To Xiao Yichen, this toy was extremely rare. He was addicted to playing with it. He sat on the flower bed and played with it with great interest. He felt that it was very interesting. He had never played with this toy when he was young. It was simple but interesting. Especially when he saw the big bubbles that he blew floating in the wind, he felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. "You quick look. I blew a big bubble." Xiao Yichen suddenly shouted excitedly. Yun Shirshir giggled and Xiao Yichen was instantly alerted. He looked up abruptly and saw that it was her. He ran over happily. "Mommy, you're awake?" Yun Shirshir squatted down and patted his head. "Yes." "Xiao Yichen, good morning." Xiao Yichen snorted and glanced at her with disdain. Good morning? The sun is already shining on your butt. Mommy is such a lazy pig." Yun Shirshir was a little embarrassed. Mu Yichen, are you asking for a beating? How dare he call Mommy a lazy pig? Then you're a lazy pig. Stupid and lazy." Yu was displeased. She placed her hands on her hips and scolded him. How dare he call Mommy a lazy pig? This brat was itching for a beating. Xiao Yichen pursed his lips and chuckled. Then he hooked his arm around Yun Shirshir's arm and handed her the jar of soapy water. "Mommy, do you want to play too? Blow bubbles with me." Yu was speechless. "Mommy, ignore him. You're not even playing with me." Xiao Yichen poked his little finger, feeling wronged. Yu rolled her eyes coldly. "I have to dry the clothes. I don't have time to play with you." "Then Mommy, let's play without him." Xiao Yichen smiled mischievously like a mischievous little elf. Yun Shirshir nodded and let him hold her hand as they ran to the flowerbed to play. Yu stared at Yun Shirshir and Xiao Yichen as they stood in the flowerbed. From time to time, he could hear the sounds of laughter. What about him? He held a clothes rack in one hand and clean clothes in the other. He sat there doing manual labor and couldn't help but feel a little angry. However, in the blink of an eye, a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. The sun was bright and clear, and the laughter made his mood exceptionally cheerful. To him, this was a simple little happiness. Chapter 1308. The black Bentley slowly drove into Mu Group's private hospital. The hospital director was already waiting at the entrance with a row of people. The car door opened and Mu Yaja stepped out. The hospital director immediately led a group of people to greet him enthusiastically. It was as if the stars were surrounding the moon. "Chairman Mu, we've been waiting for you for a long time." The hospital director smiled flatteringly. More than an hour later, Minyu called. At that time, the hospital director was still immersed in some gentle village. When he heard that a big shot from the Mu family was coming and asked him to wait, he quickly dressed up and rushed to the scene. The medical industry was a lucrative industry. Most of the medical centers and private hospitals in the country were controlled by the Mu Group. As for Mingda Hospital, it was the most famous private hospital in the capital. The hospital director, Li Changda, was able to sit in this position because he was promoted by the Mu family. Therefore, he served the Mu family like they were emperors. Mu Yaja glanced at him and asked calmly, "Where is she?" He did not bother with small talk and went straight to the point. The hospital director reacted for a few seconds and his face froze. She? May I know who you're referring to? Li Changda. I heard that a few days ago, my fourth uncle arranged for a woman to be admitted to the hospital. I'm here to see her. The hospital director was stunned for a while. He had not been in the hospital for the past few days, so naturally, he did not know the situation. The department director behind him immediately came forward and whispered a few words in his ear. He roughly told him what had happened in the hospital over the past few days. The hospital director immediately added, Chairman Mu, are you talking about the patient that fourth uncle arranged to be admitted to the hospital a few days ago? Mu Yaja seemed to have lost his patience. His voice was low and deep. The hospital director's heart skipped a beat. He said in a trembling voice, She's been controlled. Chairman Mu, I'll send someone to bring you there. With that, everyone followed behind him like stars surrounding the moon as they made their way to the hospital building. The psychiatric inpatient building. On the third floor, Mu Yaja walked through a long corridor. Then, everyone stopped at the door of Ward 5. Open the door. The psychiatric ward was different from other wards. It had a wooden door, and when the door was opened, an iron gate appeared. Mu Yaja stood at the door. Through the tightly shut iron gate and the crisscrossing iron bars, he could clearly see the scene in the ward. The layout of the ward was quite simple. The walls were painted white, and there was a window that was tightly sealed with iron bars. The window and door were tightly shut, leaving only an air vent. In the empty ward, there was nothing else except for a single bed. Beside the bed, Mu Wanru leaned against the bedside with her hair disheveled. Her pair of wide and empty eyes stared blankly out of the window. Her originally beautiful hair was now as messy as a ball of withered grass. He didn't know what kind of stains were stuck on his hair, but it looked very dirty. Chapter 1309. From time to time, she would even knock her head against the wall. Compared to the noble Mu Wanru she used to be, the current her was a stark contrast. Mu Yaja took a step forward and stood outside the iron bars. He looked at the dazed Mu Wanru in the ward and frowned. He held his breath and focused his mind. Finally, he could make out the words that she was muttering. Child, 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 child. Mu Wanru's cracked lips opened and closed incessantly. It was as if she had been possessed as she kept repeating these broken words. It was as if she was possessed by a demon. She twirled her hair with both hands. From time to time, she would pull and break her hair. Then she would pull another strand of hair. Her fingers were trembling as she twisted and broke her hair. She kept repeating these actions as if she had lost all sense of pain. Pot, my child. So miserable. So miserable. She gripped her hair in grief. She was numb as if she had gone mad. Mu Yaja looked at her coldly and glanced at the medical staff behind him. What's wrong with her? Minyu frowned and said, Boss, I heard that when she was sent to the hospital, her mental state was already very bad. After being locked in the ward for a few days, she became crazy. He raised his eyebrows and made a further judgment. Crazy? Crazy. Minyu nodded and gave him a response. Was she really crazy? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes in disgust. This woman's face was already annoying to begin with. Now that she looked like this, it was even more detestable. Could it be that this woman was up to something again? Was she pretending to be crazy? Unexpectedly, the moment he finished speaking, he alarmed the person in the ward. Mu Wanru raised her head abruptly. When she saw that it was Mu Yaja, she was stunned for a moment. She stopped her rambling and straightened her back when she saw him. The pair of empty eyes finally regained some focus, but they stared at him like the venomous snakes on the branches of a tropical rainforest. Mu Yaja looked expressionlessly at the pair of eyes that were wide open as if she had died with a grievance. Narrowing his eyes, he saw her suddenly stand up and huddle in a corner for a long time. As soon as she stood up, her body swayed and she fell to the ground again. Her head hit the headboard, but she didn't cry out in pain. It was as if she was really numb to pain. Then she scrambled to get up from the ground and stared at him again. Suddenly, she tilted her head and smiled foolishly. She pursed her lips and shrunk into a corner, pressing herself against the wall. It was as if the person standing in front of her was a terrifying monster. For you. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Mu Wanru, don't play dumb with me. Mu Wanru didn't seem to understand what he said. She clumsily said a few words, as if she was struggling to digest his words. Then, like a child with low intelligence, she bit her lips. Did you see my child? Mu Yaja pursed his thin lips into a proud line and raised his eyebrows. Child. I know. Chapter 1310. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and turned his head sideways to cast a sidelong glance at his assistant, who was standing behind him, with a complicated expression. What's wrong with her? The nurse next to him carefully observed his expression and said, Chairman Mu, this patient seems to have suffered a lot of trauma earlier and has some mental problems. In short, she had lost her mind. When Mu Wanru heard someone addressing her as Chairman Mu, it was as if the pain in the deepest part of her memory was suddenly evoked. She let out a tragic scream and suddenly stretched out her hands toward him. Her 10 fingers were stiff and twisted as they tightened. Aja, is that you? Is that you? She suddenly pulled up the corners of her lips, revealing an extremely strange smile. She laughed bitterly a few times, but immediately after, she let out a mournful and sorrowful cry. She cried for a while, then laughed for a while. Suddenly, she screamed and jumped up from the ground. Her feet staggered, and she almost fell as she threw herself towards the door. Bam! Her body and the iron gate made a loud noise. Mu Wanru held the iron gate tightly and struggled to reach out her hand through the gap, throwing herself at him. Min Yu immediately put an arm in front of Mu Yaja and separated him from her. Boss, back off. Be careful that she doesn't hurt you. Ha! Mu Wanru suddenly let out a series of earth-shattering and shrill laughter. Her eyes widened ferociously as she stared at Mu Yaja's figure. Her face was like a withered flower and she looked like a malicious spirit that had crawled out from hell. It was terrifying and sinister. Aja, I've been waiting for you here for so long. You're here. Are you here to take me away? Are you finally here to take me away? Without waiting for a response, she cried and laughed at the same time. I've been waiting for you for so long. It's been so tiring. Take me away, okay? Suddenly, she fell silent and carefully looked around as if she didn't see the person standing beside Mu Yaja. She lowered her voice and said, The people here are all demons. They abuse me, they hit me, they put me under house arrest, they torture me. Can you take me away from here? All right. Mu Wanru's eyes suddenly lit up and said mysteriously, I have good news for you. Mu Yaja looked at her extremely ugly face and asked coldly, What good news? I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. Do you know that? I'm pregnant. Mu Wanru suddenly, as if she had gone mad, to her face was filled with joy. Her entire face was twisted with joy. I'm pregnant. God, I've never thought that I would have my own child in my life. Which quack dared to say that I'm infertile? His dog eyes must be blind. All of a sudden, her face froze for a moment before turning pale again. But where's the child? The child is missing. Why is the child missing? I can't find him, I can't find him. Can you help me find the child? That's our child, our child. He's going to be the head of the Mu family in the future and the successor of the Mu group. When that time comes, I'll be able to become the mistress of the Mu family because of my son, right? Chapter 1311. Our child. Mu Yaja smiled playfully and cruelly said, That's not our child. Mu Wanru was startled. The smile on her face froze in an instant. That's not our child. Mu Wanru suddenly lowered her head guiltily. From time to time, she carefully looked up at his face. That's not our child. You know it? You know it. She was extremely guilty. Her hands helplessly twisted her messy hair with a conflicted look on her face. That child is mine and Aaron's. Yes, it's mine and Aaron's. You're blaming me, aren't you? She suddenly raised her head and looked at his cold face. Her breathing became urgent. You're blaming me, aren't you? Yes, I betrayed you. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I slept with a man. It's so dirty. I feel so dirty. With that, she began to rub her body hard. Mu Yaja's face was cold. He lowered his head and looked at her, unmoved. Mu Wanru's voice trembled as she started to speak incoherently. So, you're angry. You're angry with me. You blame me for betraying you, so you snatched my child, right? But I know that I'm wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I shouldn't have poisoned Grandpa's medicine. I shouldn't have snatched Xianxia's jade. It's because that jade is beautiful. I like it, but I shouldn't have snatched it. Mu Wanru grabbed the metal bars again and stared at him with wide eyes. I shouldn't have sent people to kill Xianxia and Ti on you. So you're angry. Don't be angry, okay? Let me off and return my child to me. I'm wrong. Mu Yaja remained silent. Mu Wanru was even more anxious now. She reached out her hand and scratched in his direction with all her might. Aja, is my child with you? Did you hide my child? Return it to me. Return it to me, okay? She mumbled that she wanted the child. Mu Yaja asked without turning his head, "Where's her child?" The nurse said, "She just had a miscarriage. The child is gone. The child is gone." Her words were, without a doubt, a greater provocation to Mu Wanru. When she heard this, she was like an ignited explosive. She went into a frenzy. She grabbed the metal bars with both hands and tugged at it. "You're lying. You're lying. My child is still alive. My child. Give me back my child. Give me back my child." But the mournful screams echoed and tore through the long corridor. Mu Wanru screamed at the top of her lungs. Due to her excessive agitation and anger, her face had turned the color of a pig's liver. She seemed to have gone crazy as she bawled at the top of her lungs. "Return, give me my child. Mu Yaja, you're the one who killed my child. Return my child to me. If not, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." Minyu was furious and scolded, "You mad dog. Biting people for no reason." The nurse on duty hurried over and ordered everyone to stand back. She then opened the door. Mu Wanru was about to rush out when the nurse picked up a pillow and gently said, "Your child is here?" Chapter 13:12. Mu Wanru was called back to her senses. She turned around in a daze and her gaze fell on the pillow in the nurse's arms. It was a soft, white pillow. Mu Wanru's eyes widened in an instant. Then she rushed over ecstatically and snatched the pillow from the nurse's arms. Child, my baby." The moment Mu Wanru hugged the pillow, she retracted her sharp aura. A motherly gentleness appeared on her face, and her eyes became docile. "Baby." Sob, "Mommy misses you so much." The medical staff behind her looked at each other. Taking advantage of this moment, they quickly rushed forward and swiftly gave her a dose of tranquilizer. Mu Wanru's body trembled violently. Then her eyes rolled back and her entire body went limp. A few doctors and nurses worked together to lift her onto the bed. Then they went out and locked the door. From the beginning to the end, Mu Yaja's face was expressionless. He only looked coldly at the crazy woman. Under the influence of the tranquilizer, she was quiet. However, she still hugged the pillow tightly in her arms and refused to let go. There was no doubt that this person had gone crazy. At first, he wondered if she was playing some trick and pretending to be crazy in front of him. But now he was sure. This woman had gone completely insane. Moreover, he was quite crazy. What exactly triggered her? According to the attending doctor, the patient has been living in fear for a long time and suffered a heavy blow overnight. As a result, he developed a serious mental disorder. Minyu responded to his suspicions. That day, after Mu Wanru woke up, she found out that her child was not saved. It had suffered a miscarriage and even her uterus had been removed. It wasn't easy for her to have a child, but it was gone. This caused Mu Wanru so much pain that she had some self-mutilating behavior. After coming out of the operating room, her condition became more and more unstable. She kept asking for a child. It seemed that she couldn't accept the pain of losing a child. She was pitiful and hateful. Mu Yaja slowly turned around and was about to leave when he saw a figure at the end of the corridor. At the end of the corridor, Mu Lianjue was leaning on a cane with someone supporting him. His back was against the light, so his expression could not be seen clearly. Mu Yaja was stunned. Then coldness and hatred appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and strode toward him. When he reached Mu Lianjue, Mu Yaja stopped in his tracks and coldly lowered his head to look down at him from above. His face was cold and sinister. Fourth Mu's fourth brother. The moment he spoke, his voice seemed to freeze 1,000 miles of ice. He directly addressed him as Mu Si, not intending to give him any face at all. Mu Lianjue's body trembled slightly as he raised his head to look at him. In the next second, Mu Yaja suddenly reached out and grabbed his throat with his strong and broad palm. He exerted so much force that one could faintly hear a few weak joints groaning. Mu Lianjue was caught off guard by his sudden move. The cane in his hand fell to the ground with a thud. Grabbing him by the throat, Mu Yaja pushed him hard and pinned him against the wall. Chapter 1313. Mu Lianjue did not even have the time to react before he was pinned down by the other. He heard Mu Yaja call him by his name without any honorifics. Fourth Mu, that was a title that only someone of Mu Linfeng's seniority could address him by. It was clear that Mu Yaja did not intend to give him any face. The moment Mu Yaja saw him, icy fury surged in his heart, and he could not restrain it. This man was too much of a bully. What did he take him for? Did he really think that just because he didn't show his power, he could play with him in the palm of his hand without fear? What a joke! Look at what kind of shady business he had done behind his back. He did not execute him immediately back then because Second Master Mu was there to stop him. He was busy looking for Yu back then, so he was not in the mood to deal with him. Look at what he had done now. He actually sent an assassin to kill a 7-year-old child. Mu Wanru had lost her mind because of the shock of losing her child. What about him? He could see that this old fart had also gone insane. Mu Lianjue was choked by him. The veins on his forehead bulged as his blood rushed to the top of his head. Due to suffocation, his eyeballs bulged out. Mu Yaja, what are you doing? He struggled to spit out a few words from his throat and looked at him angrily. Did he know that what he was doing was treacherous? In terms of seniority, Mu Yaja should respectfully address him as fourth uncle. He was his elder, after all. He, Mu Lianjue, had a prominent and honorable position in the Mu family. He went up to him and grabbed his neck without saying a word. He looked angry and called him Fourth Mu. This was more than just treason, this was practically a rebellion? Who gave him the guts to do that? Mu Yaja glared at him coldly. His eyes were bloodshot and full of murderous intent. Mu Lianjue could see the terrifying murderous intent in his eyes. It was real murderous intent. It was not just anger. Mu Lianjue's heart was filled with nervousness and fear. He had never seen such a terrifying expression on Mu Yaja's usually cold and calm face. It was as if he was an ancient king who had been angered and turned violent. His pair of cold and sharp eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. What are you doing? Frightened, Mu Lianjue gripped Mu Yaja's wrist tightly with both hands and began to pry his fingers apart. The Mu family had an illustrious background. The Mu's would be arranged to serve in the military when they were young. Just like Mu Lianjue, he had also undergone harsh training in the military when he was younger. Even though he was getting on in years, he still had strength in his hands. However, the current Mu Yaja was at the peak of his anger. All the strength in his body seemed to have condensed in this hand that was choking his neck. No matter how hard he struggled and tried to break free, it was all in vain. Mu Lianjue felt increasingly suffocated. His eyelids twitched uncontrollably as he gasped for air. Mu Yaja's grip tightened, as if he could snap his fragile throat in the next second. I've lost my last bit of patience with you. Mu Yaja sneered evilly. His eyes were like the tip of a cold knife as they landed on the man's face, causing him to feel a sharp pain. Chapter 1314. Can you, Mu Lianjue? As soon as he said that, Mu Yaja tightened his grip on his neck. In the next second, he felt the world spinning before his eyes. The excruciating pain in his throat cut off all possibility of breathing. He could only feel that his throat was so fragile that it could not withstand a single blow from the other and would be crushed in the next instant. This brat was bent on putting him to death. He did not leave any way out at all. How heartless! Was he so heartless that he would strangle his fourth uncle to death for a woman and AB** starred from who knows where? It was as if he could hear the joints in his throat creaking as they tightened. Cough, cough. Mu Lianjue gradually lost his strength and could no longer struggle. Madness. This was madness. Mu Lianjue glanced at him, only to see a version of Mu Yaja he had never seen before. One was cold, heartless, and exuded a sharp, murderous aura from head to toe. Mu Yaja glared at him with bloodshot eyes. His pair of dark eyes seemed to be filled with a thick fog of viciousness. It was as if he could topple the mountains and overturn the seas and swallow him whole. Min Yu hurried over from behind, only to be stunned by this scene. Realizing that things were not looking good, he hurried forward to calm Mu Yaja down. "Boss, what are you doing?" Mu Yaja was not in the mood to respond to him. He only stared coldly at Mu Lianjue's face. The evil and heartless expression on his face made Mu Lianjue's heart sink into an ice cellar. "No, I don't want to die, I can't die." Mu Lianjue kicked him with all his might. However, even when those heavy kicks landed on Mu Yaja's calf, the latter's posture remained cold and still. It was as if he did not care about his attacks at all. Min Yu panicked and went forward to stop him. He knew very well that although this was a private property under the Mu Group, it was still related to the medical industry and was closely linked to the government. No matter how powerful and influential the Mu family was, if someone were to die here, it would be an unimaginable blow to the Mu family. Min Yu was puzzled. In his mind, his boss had always been calm and astute, and he was able to clearly distinguish between personal grudges and benefits. So, why was he so agitated right now that he'd completely forgotten where he was? Although Mingda Hospital was under the Mu family's name, there were many mouthpieces of the government in the hospital. He shouldn't have done that. However, Min Yu was wrong about one thing. Since Mu Yaja dared to do this, he must have a way to suppress this matter. Even if he personally dealt with Mu Lianjue in front of everyone in this hospital today, he still had the ability to control the situation. He wasn't afraid of killing anyone. Moreover, as the successor of the Mu family, he had experienced a lot of light and also a lot of darkness. He could be so ruthless because he was not afraid at all. He had the ability to kill Mu Lianjue without causing a stir. Once he hardened his heart, not to mention Mu Lianjue, even if he had to go head-to-head with someone like Mu Linfeng, he would be fearless. No one could do anything to him. Chapter 13:15. Mu Lianjue had violated so many of his rights and trespassed on so many forbidden grounds, yet he still looked at ease when he met him. Did he not know that the reason why he was so calm and unhurried was that he was confident that he would not dare to do anything to him because he was his fourth uncle? Or was he so sure that he had a certain status in the Mu family that he naively thought that he would not dare to do anything to him? Min Yu panicked when he saw that Mu Lianjue's breathing was getting shorter and shorter. His face had turned red, and the veins on his forehead were about to pop out. He was so anxious that he broke out in cold sweat. Could it be that the boss was really going to kill someone? Thus, he braced himself and went forward to stop him. "Boss, calm down. Don't get angry, lest the harmony in the family is damaged." Mu Yaja easily pushed him aside with one hand. "Get lost." Just as he was about to lose his wits after being pushed aside, an angry bellow was heard from behind him. "Are you crazy? Stop it." It was Mu Linfeng's voice. Mu Yaja frowned slightly and glanced back from the corner of his eye. While he was distracted, Mu Lianjue mustered all his strength and finally broke free from him. He fell to the side and hugged his neck as he coughed and gasped for air. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Lianjue could not stop coughing. When he raised his head to look at Mu Yaja, he looked as if he had seen a ghost and could not help but retreat backward. He was old. It was difficult for him to fight against him. Mu Yaja turned around and bumped into Mu Linfeng. Mu Linfeng, who was dressed in a well-ironed military uniform, slowly walked toward him, his footsteps like a gust of wind. He was different from the others. Mu Yaja had only trained in the army when he was young. Mu Linfeng, on the other hand, had been in the army since he was 10 years old. In a sense, he had devoted his life to power. Strictly speaking, he was the real power behind the Mu family and had toyed with it for most of his life. Now that the Mu family had developed to this point, they were naturally no longer just a wealthy family in the business world. With such a large family, they were involved in both legal and illegal activities. The one who represented the legal side was naturally the head of the capital's military, Mu Linfeng. Moreover, his wife was from a powerful family. Hence, the power in his hands, even Mu Yaxia, was not to be underestimated. Mu Linfeng came to the hospital today to prescribe some medicine. He had some old ailments. While he was at it, to meet Mu Lianjue and make some arrangements. Mu Linfeng knew his nephew well. He was a hot-blooded man. Mu Lianjue had done so many taboo things. His nephew would definitely not let him off so easily. Once the dust settled, he would definitely offend Mu Lianjue. Be it through open means or underhanded means, he would definitely settle this score. If things went wrong, Mu Lianjue's old life would be lost. Mu Linfeng, on the other hand, cared about their brotherhood. Perhaps, at his age, he was no longer so high-spirited and emotional. He was worried that Mu Yaxia would secretly deal with Mu Lianjue, so he asked him to go abroad for a period of time to avoid the limelight. He came to the hospital to check on Mu Wanru's condition and to understand the situation from the doctor. Chapter 1316. Thankfully, he had appeared in time and stopped him in time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to think further. From the earlier scene, Mu Linfeng had indirectly experienced how ruthless his nephew could be. Mu Yaxia looked at him with a lukewarm expression. "Second uncle, why are you here? You're crazy. How impudent. Are you crazy? What were you trying to do earlier?" "Nothing." Mu Yaxia sneered. "It's been so many years. Some old grudges should be settled with someone, right?" "Nonsense." Mu Linfeng was flustered and exasperated. He was about to say something when he suddenly paused and looked around with a warning look in his eyes. When Minyu saw this, he naturally understood what he meant. He immediately cleared the crowd and left the stage himself. At this point, only the uncle and nephew were left in the corridor. After everyone left, Mu Linfeng glared at him. "Don't mess around. Yaxia, he's your fourth uncle and your elder. Do you think it's appropriate for you to do this? No matter what he did wrong, he's still your elder. What you did earlier was simply disgraceful." Mu Yajia's face turned cold. "Why, second uncle? From your tone, it sounds like you're trying to absolve fourth Mu." Mu Linfeng retorted, "Fourth Mu, is that a title you have the right to call him? You should respectfully call him fourth uncle. Don't be rude. What you did was disgraceful. Second uncle, you're the one who has no right to interfere in the grudge between me and fourth Mu." Mu Yaxia sneered. This time, he didn't give Mu Linfeng any face. In short, he didn't give him a way out. Mu Linfeng almost fainted from his insolent tone. "Do you still have any respect for your elders? Do you still have any manners?" Mu Linfeng's temper flared as he scolded without any grace. "You must remember that he's your elder and you're his junior. No matter what he did wrong, it's not up to you to act rashly here, do you understand? Second uncle, are you going to interfere in this matter to the end?" "I don't know what you're talking about. I won't interfere with you, but you have to be clear about the difference in status. I don't want to see what just happened again." Mu Yaxia looked at him deeply. His eyes were cold and the corners of his thin lips lifted slightly. However, he asked a question that pierced one's heart. It seems that second uncle is determined to protect him. His tone was incomparably gloomy, causing people to tremble with fear. Mu Linfeng was furious. At the same time, he looked into Mu Yajia's eyes, which were unfathomable. "Second uncle, aren't you afraid of hurting our friendship by doing this?" Mu Linfeng clenched his fists and took a deep breath before saying, "If the family is harmonious, everything will prosper." As soon as he said that, Mu Yaxia chuckled softly and coldly. It was as if this sentence was the biggest joke to him. "Your words are truly laughable and lamentable." Mu Yaxia narrowed his eyes and walked up to Mu Linfeng. He lowered his head slightly and cast a cold glance at the latter's face from the corner of his eyes. "If the family is harmonious, everything will prosper. You, Mu Yaja suddenly asked, second uncle, you should be aware of what happened more than 10 years ago, right? Chapter 13:17. Mu Yaja, on the other hand, caught too many chilling things from his face. He continued to ask, you know the details of my father's car accident and my mother's death, don't you? Mu Linfeng did not say anything. Mu Yaja continued coldly, so, what am I to you? I'm just a pawn. Calm down. I'm very calm. Mu Yaja closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were so cold that it made one's heart palpitate. I'm very calm. Mu Linfeng's heart sank when he saw this. With a pale face, he explained, about your father's car accident more than a decade ago, if I had foreseen it, I would have stopped it. I was only aware of that matter in hindsight. Upon hearing this, Mu Yaja's lips tugged expressionlessly into a half-smile. Fourth bro is indeed muddle-headed in this matter. However, it's been more than a decade. Since he's let it go, you should let it go too, shouldn't you? Now that you have the entire Mu group, why do you have to care about the past? It's been so many years, let's just settle it. Mu Yaja laughed. Settle it? After more than 10 years, such a huge blood feud could be resolved with just a few words. Mu Yaja smiled and replied coldly, sure. Mu Linfeng looked at him in surprise, only to hear him say sinisterly, if you want it to be settled, you'll have to pay with your life. After saying that, he turned around and walked away. Mu Linfeng stood rooted to the ground in a daze. He understood what Mu Yaja's words meant. He was definitely going to use Mu Lianjue's life to settle this debt. Mu Lianjue stood up shakily, his face as pale as wax. Second brother, fourth bro, look at you, you've incurred this debt. Why did you do such a foolish thing back then? Mu Linfeng glared at him in exasperation. Mu Lianjue's face paled. If it was in the past, he would definitely have said in an old-fashioned manner, that lad definitely won't dare to do anything to me. However, after what happened just now, he could clearly see the murderous intent in Mu Yaja's eyes. Now, he did not dare to say such a thing no matter what. Second brother, don't you understand me? Why did you do that back then? You've seen it too. You've seen it clearly. In terms of ability and skill, am I any worse than Lianqing? I'm only more outstanding. However, how did that old fart make such a decision? The Mu family's inheritance's position. But in the end, it's given to Lianqing. I can't accept this. Can you accept it? Even though you don't say anything on the surface, you're still indignant deep down. Mu Linfeng fell silent. In the dim corridor, against the light, two elders in their 50s stood facing each other, but they could not see each other's faces. Chapter 13:18. He coughed violently when he got agitated and then said hoarsely, I didn't do that purely for my own benefit. I did it for the Mu group. I can't do it. I can't watch the Mu family's empire fall into the hands of a piece of trash in just one night. That's our blood, sweat, and tears. I won't allow him to trample on it. Enough. Mu Linfeng sighed as if he had lost all his strength. That matter is already in the past. I don't want to pursue it anymore. Fourth bro, you should stop now. Second brother, what should I do now? You can't leave me alone. Mu Linfeng looked at him and sighed faintly. Fourth bro, when we were young, I could tell that you were the most utilitarian among us. You were the most ambitious. I admit that among the brothers, your ability is considered to be quite outstanding. I won't deny it. But the ridiculous things you've done are too much. Mu Lianjue gritted his teeth. I was young and impetuous back then. I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it. That's why I wanted to let that old man have a taste of the pain of losing his most beloved things one by one. That's enough. Shut up. Mu Linfeng turned around. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, Later, I'll send someone to protect you and arrange a flight to America for you as soon as possible. Lie low for now while you're abroad. You can come back when I summon you. I know. He was indignant, but there was nothing he could do now. He had lost this war. As a loser, he had nothing left and his momentum was gone. Now, he could only lie low abroad. Mu Yaja received a call from Mu Linfeng when he returned to the office. When he picked up the call, he went straight to the point. There's something I want to tell you. I'll be frank with you. I'm protecting fourth bro. If you want to give second uncle face, don't touch him. Otherwise, it'll hurt the harmony in the family. Although Mu Linfeng's tone was firm and left no room for negotiation, it was rare for him to lower his stance in front of him. After weighing the pros and cons, Mu Linfeng decided to ease the tension with Mu Yaxia. When Mu Yaxia heard this, he sneered, "Second uncle, do you need to report your decisions to me?" "Yaxia, everything should come to an end. Let bygones be bygones." "Heh. Second uncle is also responsible for this matter. If second uncle had anticipated your fourth uncle's ambition, he would have taken precautions. You should understand that second uncle values the unity of the family and doesn't like to split up. I also feel very regretful and sad about your father's death. I am also very angry with your fourth uncle, very angry. However, some of his methods are too much, and it seems unreasonable. What is a favor? Second uncle, how can you talk about favors with me in the Mu family? In such a big Mu family, there is only the cold struggle for power. What is there to talk about? How laughable. How pathetic. Just like a person who drinks water, only he knows whether it is hot or cold. Perhaps, in Mu Linfeng's eyes, Mu Lianxing's death was just a trivial matter that could be summed up with a simple word of regret. It was as if a single word from him could float away with the wind. Every step in the rich family was treacherous. A single mistake could lead to eternal damnation. The struggle for power was never-ending. Even though he knew this, he still could not forget the pain. The pain that almost destroyed him. Chapter 13:19. Mu Linfeng fell silent. The silence was so long that just as Mu Yaxia was about to hang up the call, he heard his uncle's heavy and powerless voice. "What do you want me to do for you to be magnanimous?" Mu Yaxia's voice sank as he retracted his smile. His cold voice sounded apathetic. "Be magnanimous? Second uncle, you must be joking. What kind of tone is that? Yaxia, is this the attitude you should have toward your elders? I'm your second uncle, don't be too arrogant and insufferably arrogant." Mu Lianjue flew into a rage out of humiliation at his indifference. "Yaxia, consider it as giving your second uncle some face. For the sake of our family's bloodline, at least don't be so ruthless. He's your fourth uncle after all, the same blood flows in his veins." Mu Yaxia had completely lost his patience with him and was disgusted with his uncle's haughty attitude. He snorted coldly, "Aren't you overestimating your own status by saying that?" Mu Linfeng was deeply stunned on the other end of the line. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect this lad to speak to him in such a manner. In the past, he would never speak to him in such a manner. While he was in a daze, Mu Yaxia mercilessly retorted, "It's hard to say who's giving face in this matter. I've already made up my mind. If second uncle insists on protecting him from me, you can try." "You can try." What a boastful tone. Mu Linfeng was furious. An uncontrollable rage exploded in his chest as he scolded, "Yaxia, aren't you going overboard with your words? Don't forget who you're relying on to have your current status. Who did you rely on to be able to sit in the position of successor? Think about it again. Who are you relying on to become the head of the Mu family? Without me, can you have your current status? Don't even think about it. Don't forget how pathetic you would have been back then if it weren't for me. It was me who helped you to your current position, hee. You're different now. Your wings have hardened, so you want to soar high, right? You're so arrogant that you won't give me any face, will you? Second uncle, don't forget that I owe you all these years, and it's about time I pay you back. You support me? The smile on Mu Yaxia's face disappeared, and his eyes turned cold. Second uncle, I can't help but admire you for making use of me sound so dignified. Yes, you were the one who supported me, but did you think that I was able to sit in this position all because of you? Not necessarily. Not everyone can reach where they are today with your support. Back then, no matter who it was, no one would be able to replace my achievements today. Mu Linfeng's expression changed drastically as viciousness surfaced on his face. Mu Yaxia paused and said with a mocking smile, "Moreover, I should have paid back all the favors you've given me over the years. Have you forgotten? You can't do those dirty things with your status. Those dirty tricks that you couldn't complete were done by me. But are you trying to erase this bit of credit with just a few words from you? Mu Linfeng questioned sternly. Then, what exactly do you want now? Chapter 1320. When Mu Linfeng heard that, he was both furious and shocked. Firstly, it was because of Mu Yaja's arrogant tone. Secondly, it was because of the implied warning in his words. Mu Yaja had no intention of giving him any face at all. While he flew into a rage out of humiliation, he also felt a trace of lingering fear in his heart. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. How loyal were the people he had groomed for so many years to him? In the past, Mu Yaja had always been respectful toward his elders. Despite his arrogance, callousness, and indifference, he was still very respectful toward the elders in the family. Now, however, from his words, Mu Linfeng could tell that he was actually being unreasonable and rebellious toward him. He couldn't help but wonder if he should teach him a lesson and teach him a lesson. With that thought in mind, his words became impolite. Don't go overboard. You brat, you actually know how to argue with me, huh? Since you put it that way, I have nothing else to say. You settle your score, and I'll protect my people. If I can't protect them, it'll be because of your ability. However, let me say this first. Yaja, don't blame me for not reminding you when the time comes. What kind of consequences will your actions bring upon you? Don't you think it's time for you to examine the situation you're in now? You've just ascended to the position, and everyone in the family is suspicious of you. If you act rashly at this time, aren't you afraid of those gossips? When the time comes, if there are unfavorable rumors about you within the family, you'd better be careful not to lose your position as the head of the family. Second uncle, you should know me well enough. No one can stop me from doing what I want to do. It's either I don't do it. If I do, I won't leave a way out. I think it's best if you don't waste your efforts. Otherwise, I'll embarrass you when the time comes. His uncle warned him. In that case, he also gave him a piece of advice. Mu Linfeng gritted his teeth. You'll regret it. Mu Yaja coldly added, I've never regretted what I've done. Second uncle, you're overthinking it. With that, he cut off the line. On the other end, Mu Linfeng was so infuriated that he slammed the phone on the table and stood up abruptly. With his hands behind his back, he paced back and forth on the spot, clearly irritated. This brat's wings were really getting harder and harder. How could he say something like that? Mu Linfeng was furious. On the other end, Mu Yaja hung up the phone and pondered for a moment. As his second uncle, he was bound to protect his nephew. There was one thing that second uncle had nothing to say about. Thus, even though he had some disputes with Mu Lianjue when he was younger, he had let it go at this age. On account of their brotherhood, Mu Linfeng was naturally unwilling to watch the family members kill each other. If it were any other matter, Mu Yaja would not have brushed him off for his sake. However, this matter was out of the question. Putting aside the matter of Mu Lianjue harming his parents more than a decade ago, the thought of him sending trained assassins to kill Yu for the sake of exterminating all of them was intolerable. Who gave him the courage to touch his woman and son? Mu Yaja then made a call to a mysterious person. Chapter 1321. When Lu Jinyu heard Mu Yaja's deep tone, he knew that this was not a small matter. Thus, he did not waste time on small talk and said forcefully, Chief, tell me. Mu Yaja knocked on the table and said in a deep voice, I want something, but it's not suitable for me to show my face with my current status. I need you to secretly give me the order. What is it? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said word by word, I want a person's life. In the afternoon, Xianxia was coaxing the two children to read a script at home when she suddenly received a call from her father. Some time ago, he rushed back to his hometown to attend a funeral. It was said that his mother had passed away, so he hurried back. Later, he called to say that he would be observing mourning in his hometown for a period of time. He then reminded Xianxia to take care of herself at home. Xianxia also reminded him to take care of his health. The father-daughter pair usually kept in touch with each other, but this time, Yun Yeqing had called to discuss something with her. Sure, it's like this. There's something I want to discuss with you. Dad, what's the matter? Do you still remember Uncle Yeho whom you met when you were young? Uncle Yeho, Yun Yeho, was Yun Yeqing's younger brother. Yun Yeqing's hometown was in a small county dozens of kilometers away from the capital. There was a backward village called Yun Family Village. The scenery there was picturesque, but due to its location, the village's economy had always been backward. Yun Yeqing had an elderly mother, an elder sister, and a younger brother. He had always been closer to his younger brother. When he was very young, his father passed away early due to a mining accident. His mother raised the 3 children single-handedly. When he was young, he entrusted his mother to his younger brother, Yun Yeho, and came to the city to make a living. When he was young, he was high-spirited and had a good head for business, so he worked hard to make a name for himself. At that time, he wanted to bring his mother and siblings to the city to enjoy life. In the end, his old mother was used to living in the countryside and refused. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, allowed Yun Yeqing to develop his career in the city with peace of mind. Since his mother was not in the city, it was only natural for him to stay at home and take care of her. Yun Lingru, on the other hand, could not wait to rush to the city. Her father arranged a job for her, so she settled down in the city, got married, and gave birth to a pair of children. This time, however, he was talking about Yun Yeho. It turned out that Yun Yeqing's mother's health had deteriorated a few years ago, and Yun Yeho had always been filial to her on behalf of his elder brother. Yun Yeqing would send a sum of money to his hometown every month, but ever since the Yun family's downfall, he could not help but feel a little strapped for cash. Hence, he could only send a small amount of money each month. Because of this, Yun Yeho's wife had complained about this. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, was an honest man. He did not complain at all and took good care of his mother all the time. It was just that the weather was unpredictable. A year ago, when Yun Yeho was working at a construction site, the safety measures were not in place, and he fell from the 3rd floor. Coincidentally, half of his body was paralyzed. From then on, he could only stay in bed and needed someone to take care of him. Chapter 1322. Yun Yeho was afraid that his father would worry about this matter, so he did not bring it up. The main reason was that he was afraid that he would become a burden to his father. Moreover, he was an upright person, so he did not mention it to his father. It was only when he rushed back to his hometown to handle the funeral that he learned about this matter. He had mixed feelings about it. All these years, Yun Yeho had been the one to fulfill his filial piety on his behalf. Now that his younger brother had fallen ill, it was only after a year that he, as his older brother, learned about it for the first time. When he saw his brother lying paralyzed on the bed with his weathered face, he suddenly felt guilty. He had let his younger brother down. Now that the funeral was over, Yun Yeqing had the idea of bringing his brother back to the city to live with him. He wanted to take good care of his younger brother while he was still young. However, he remembered that his house in the city had been sold, and he was now living with Yun Xianxia. Would it be bad for him to bring his younger brother back? Although their house was big, he was afraid of disturbing Yun Xianxia when he thought of how she would have her own family and life in the future. Hence, when Yun Yeqing called to ask for her opinion on this matter, he brought it up to her. Sure, I know that you're kind-hearted and won't reject my request. However, I still hope that you won't force yourself. I haven't been filial to you all these years. Now that your brother is sick, I feel bad and want to bring him back to the city to take care of him. Will you be angry with me? Yun Xianxia was silent for a moment. Yun Xianxia had met this man twice when she was young. This time, not long after she had arrived at the Yun residence, Yun Yeho and his family had gone to the city to visit their relatives. Wearing rustic clothes, they brought along local specialties, fruits, and vegetables from their hometown to visit Yun Yeqing's family. At that time, he had even carried her. He was very close to children and especially liked them. Between Yun Xianxia and Yun Xianxia, he especially liked the docile and obedient girl and doted on her. The second time was when Yun Yeqing's business was ruined and his family was in dire straits. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, had come here in secret behind his wife's back. He knew that his brother was having a hard time and that their family was in dire straits. Thus, he secretly gave him tens of thousands of yuan, which he had scrimped and saved, to pay off his brother's debt. How could Yun Yeqing accept it? He rejected it again and again. His brother, on the other hand, was honest and did not say much. He just quietly stuffed the money into the cupboard before he left. Yun Shishir had a good impression of her brother. He was an honest and upright person. The moment she heard that Yun Yeqing planned to bring her brother over, she was still considering where to settle him down. Shandiwalk? That can't be. It's too inconvenient. Most importantly, given her current occupation, if she were to be followed by the paparazzi, it would definitely disturb her husband, who was planning to move to the city to recuperate. Chapter 1323. Usually, I'll stay there to take care of him. However, because of this, it might be difficult for me to take care of you. I hope you can understand me. After all, Grandma passed away and your uncle is half paralyzed. It's quite serious. That's why I want to take good care of him. Dad, what are you talking about? Yun Shishir did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said helplessly, you earn 5,000 yuan a month. After deducting the rent, how much can you afford? It was not that he had not thought of this problem. He was extremely vexed. He also thought of asking Yun Shishir for help, but he was too ashamed to do so. However, he heard Yun Shishir say, how about this? The house we're living in now has 3 floors. If Uncle doesn't mind, we can put him on the 3rd floor. How about it? However, I'm afraid that the little guy will cause a ruckus and affect his rest. If you're worried about this, I can contact someone and buy a small bungalow nearby. The environment will be more elegant and secluded. This way, I'll be close to him and can visit him when necessary. Dad, your health isn't good, so don't go out and work. Stay at home and accompany Uncle. I'll hire a caretaker to take care of him regularly. Who knows, if the care is in place, there might be a glimmer of hope for him to stand again. Don't you think so? This won't do. You're working so hard and taking care of a child. You're already too busy, you can't do this. He did not want her to work too hard and run around for his debt of gratitude. If that was the case, he would rather think of a solution himself. Dad, must you treat me like an outsider? It's not a big deal. Now, I have the ability, and I'm earning more money. My life is no longer like before, when I can't make ends meet. It's time for me to be filial to you. You've raised me for so many years. You deserve this filial piety. That's why you don't have to say such things to me. I know you're thinking for my sake, but I feel very sad when I hear it. Yun Yeqing was stunned. Suddenly, a slightly choked voice came from the other end. Yun Shishir didn't notice this slight movement. Instead, she said, besides, Dad, you've been in the city for so many years, while Uncle stayed in the hometown to observe filial piety on your behalf and take care of Grandma. A few years ago, he worked at the construction site for more than 10 years and suffered for most of his life. Moreover, when our family was in dire straits, Uncle always remembered us and thought of us. Taking care of him is also the responsibility of a junior, isn't it? Shishir, I'm already very touched that you think this way. However, you shouldn't take everything on yourself. Let's do it this way. Dad will bring Uncle and the others here. Then, we'll do what I said before and rent a small house for Uncle to rest. We'll talk about the rest later. Dad, this is not appropriate. Yun Shishir sighed. Hey, Shishir, listen to me. I have my reasons for making such arrangements. What is the reason? At the mention of this, Yun Yeqing stammered and refused to say. He only said that it would implicate Yun Shishir. Under Yun Shishir's repeated questioning, he finally spilled the beans. Chapter 1324. When Yun Yeho was young, he relied on his hard work to build a new house in his hometown and married a wife named Xianxia, who gave birth to a pair of daughters. Originally, the days were peaceful and quiet. However, when Yun Yeho got into an accident, there were some subtle changes to his life. His wife did not usually go out to work. Instead, she took care of a few acres of land at home. Usually, she would work in the fields, while her husband would work outside and send money home. Later, when he was working, he was seriously injured and became paralyzed. The pillar of support for the family collapsed, cutting off half of their source of income. As a result, the burden of living fell on his wife. At first, she did not complain. She would go out to farm in the day and come back at night to take care of Yun Yeho and his mother-in-law. However, not long after, Xianxia became unhappy. She had to go out to work in the day and come back at night to take care of her seriously ill mother-in-law and the bedridden Yun Yeho. Gradually, her complaints increased. She was somewhat dissatisfied with Yun Yeqing and Yun Yeho. When Yun Yeqing's family was prosperous, he did not do anything to his mother and only sent some money home. However, when they were down and out, Yun Yeho secretly sent money to his father behind her back. Now that Yun Yeho was bedridden, not only did he not inform Yun Yeqing, but the latter also did not come back to visit him. Therefore, she once suggested that they get back the tens of thousands of yuan they had given to Yun Yeqing to ease their hard times. Yun Yeho was unwilling to do so. He said that it was not easy for Yun Yeqing either. Everything in the city had to be spent, and life was tough. The couple quarreled. From then on, they did not put in as much effort in taking care of Yun Yeho and his mother-in-law and appeared to be very perfunctory. This time, when Yun Yeqing went back to attend his mother's funeral, he learned of this matter and proposed to bring Yun Yeho to the city. When Xianxia heard of this, she also wanted to follow them to the city. Yun Yeqing could not reject her because of his pride, but Yun Yeho was angry when he heard this. He was afraid that dragging his family would burden his father, so he refused to go to the city. Chapter 1325. Yun Yeho was infuriated. Her father hurriedly tried to smooth things over. "Don't bother. Your whole family will follow me to the city. I still have some connections so I can arrange jobs for your two daughters." With that, Xianxia was satisfied. This was also the reason why Yun Yeqing repeatedly said that he could not burden Yun Shishir. With Li Qin in front of him, he had suffered enough. Naturally, he could not let Yun Shishir have another burden. Who knew if she was the second Li Qin? Yun Yeqing did not dare to let Yun Shishir carry another burden. Yun Shishir smiled at his words and said, "Dad, you've taught me before that a harmonious family will prosper. Still, since you're worried that I'll be dragged down, I'll respect your opinion. Still, when Uncle comes to the city, even if he doesn't stay with me, I'll at least be in charge of their accommodation. This is also a token of my sincerity." Yun Shishir's words were very pleasing to his ears. With tears in his eyes, he lamented, "Shishir, the best choice I've ever made in my life is to meet you. Although you're not my biological daughter, I've always treated you as my own in my heart. I know that you're filial and know how to be grateful. At the same time, I hope that you can lead a better life. Your happiness is Dad's greatest wish." Yun Shishir smiled and comforted him a little more before hanging up the phone. Afterward, she thought that since Yun Yeqing was bringing Yun Yeho to the city, he would need to consider some accessories. Thus, she decided to head out to purchase some items. The season had changed recently, so she wanted to buy some clothes for the two children and Muyaja. Thus, she left a note on the table and left. She hailed a nanny van. When they reached the city center, she put on a pair of sunglasses, a low cap, and a jacket before heading into the shopping center. As a public figure, she had quite a bit of popularity in the public eye. Thus, she had to put more thought into her outfit when she went out. It would be troublesome if the reporters recognized them and distorted the report. After Yun Shishir confirmed that she didn't recognize her, she went to the children's clothing section. Previously, she had taken Xiao Yichen's measurements. Xiao Yichen matured very early and very quickly. He grew taller and was a head taller than Yu. For a child his age, the clothes he wore for a season would not fit him anymore. Therefore, Xiao Yichen changed his clothes very diligently. Xiao Yichen's skeleton was slightly bigger than Yu's. Perhaps it was because he developed earlier than Yu, but his body had already started to develop. He had broad shoulders, long legs, and a sturdy back. As such, Yun Shishir specially chose a few suits for Xiao Yichen. She carried a few clothes to the counter to pay for them. Then, she carefully selected a few elegant gentlemen's suits for Yu. Yu was especially suited for this style of clothes. The suits made the little guy look elegant, classy, and especially noble. When she brought a few pieces of clothing to the counter, the salesperson looked at her with a strange gaze. Just as Yun Shishir took out her wallet, the salesperson at the counter stared at her and asked tentatively, "Are you that Yin Xiachuan who acted in The Green Apple with Gu Xingze?" Chapter 1326. I can't remember your name, but I know you. I've seen the movie you acted in online. You played the role of Xianxia in it, right? Xianxia's lips twitched a few times before she said calmly, "Please help me settle the bill." "Thank you." Oh. The shop assistant quickly packed up the clothes she had bought. However, she suddenly realized that the clothes Xianxia had brought over were children's clothing. She noticed that they were clothes for children around 7 or 8 years old. Why was she buying clothes at the children's clothing section? The shop assistant was suddenly stunned. The internet had advertised that Xianxia was as pure as a young girl and that she was single. She had never been married. Could it be that she had gotten married in secret and had a child? But these clothes were for children around 7 or 8 years old. If she were to convert, she would have had a child at the age of 18. However, according to the law, 18 years old was not the legal age for marriage. Could it be that she had a child out of wedlock? And it was an illegitimate child. The shop assistant cursed silently and was shocked by her own suspicions. This rumor was so explosive. Hence, when Xianxia carried the shopping bags in her hands, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a few shop assistants huddling together and secretly taking out their cell phones. The cameras seemed to be aimed at her. Secretly taking photos? Xianxia's heart sank. She immediately turned around and left in a hurry. Behind her, one of the shop assistants suddenly slapped her forehead and had an epiphany. I remember now. Isn't she Xianxia? The one who was rumored to be in a scandal with Xianxia. Xianxia. I know her. She just debuted and she's already very popular. Xianxia walked briskly. The shop assistants behind her raised their cell phones and aimed the cameras at her. They were following her because of her fame. She reached out to stop them. Stop taking photos. Can you stop taking photos? Xianxia panicked. In the past, she would have her assistant and bodyguard with her. At this time, the bodyguard would appear and stop these people. But now, she was alone. Other than hiding and begging pitifully, there was nothing else she could do. She didn't expect that after dressing up like this and wrapping herself up like a dumpling, she would still be recognized. It could only be said that The Green Apple was too popular. The meticulously edited trailer with exquisite scenes and a warm melody. Once those sensational and beautiful scenes were released on the internet, it immediately caused a strong reaction among the young people. The memories of my youth, the warmth in my memories. Xianxia and Xianxia's acting as the winter and summer couple couldn't be any more perfect. Even though Xianxia and Xianxia are in their 20s, their acting is as authentic as a 16-year-old's. The Green Apple s The Green Apple s Xianxia s The Green Apple, but after seeing the trailer, it's beyond everyone's expectations. It seems to be a good feeling. In addition to the official Weibo's promotion and the hype of various famous marketing accounts, Xianxia also revealed the highlights of the filming from time to time. Hence, the topic of The Green Apple was constantly trending on the internet. Hence, almost all the young people who frequently surfed the internet knew about Xianxia. Xianxia walked all the way, but the shop assistants were still chasing after her with their cell phones. They madly took photos, recorded videos of her. She was a celebrity. And a big celebrity. Chapter 1327. Actually, given Xianxia's current status, it could only be said that she had just become famous. Other than acting in a movie, shooting a few print advertisements, and taking on an MV for an idol drama's original soundtrack, she was widely known by the public due to her high exposure. However, in terms of status, she could not be compared to Han Yuyan and Yang Mi. The reason why she was considered a big star was because Lin Fengtian's personal charisma was too strong. In addition, he had worked with Xianxia before. Moreover, the two of them had been involved in scandals outside of filming. In the eyes of the public, Xianxia had always been an excellent idol who was insulated from scandals. He rarely had any scandals with female celebrities. Other than some groundless accusations by the media and the female celebrities who had worked with him deliberately buying marketing accounts to create scandals, Xianxia could be said to have no scandals at all. Therefore, when Xianxia's team did not particularly resist the scandals between him and Xianxia, In the eyes of the public, Xianxia had almost become the heavenly king sister-in-law candidate. A female celebrity who had worked with Xianxia before. She had been very popular recently. Moreover, everyone had their vanity. If they could post a photo with a celebrity on their WeChat moments, wouldn't they be in the limelight? Xianxia, can you take a photo with me? Xianxia, are you really together with Xianxia? That's impossible, right? They can't be together. I've seen the trailer of The Green Apple. Actually, when the two of them stand together, they look very compatible. If she is together with Xianxia, I definitely won't be disgusted. Xianxia, can you take a photo with us? The voices behind her were still chasing her relentlessly. Xianxia turned around and glanced. She did not know when, but the number of employees behind her had increased from 2 to 3. Many of them were passers-by who were shopping in the mall. However, when they heard a loud voice, they knew that a big star had arrived. When they heard that it was Xianxia, who had been involved in a scandal with Xianxia not long ago, they all chased after her out of admiration. It was a rare opportunity to be in close contact with idols and celebrities. In addition, many people were curious about the relationship between Xianxia and Xianxia. They wanted to find out more about it. Unknowingly, the number of people following her increased. Xianxia was like a headless fly bumping about in the huge shopping mall. She rarely came to shopping malls. After becoming a public figure, she had fewer opportunities to shop and could only shop online. However, when she shopped online, the things she bought were always not to her liking. That was why she had the idea of shopping today. The mall was so big and there were so many twists and turns. She was not careful and walked into a dead end. Xianxia sucked in a breath of cold air. When she turned around, she found that the road was completely blocked. What should he do? Xianxia stood helplessly on the spot. She was so nervous that she broke out in cold sweat. She didn't know what to do. She immediately called Wuxia and informed her of her current location in a hushed voice, asking her to hurry over to put out the fire. Wuxia said that she would be there in 10 minutes. However, distant water could not put out a nearby fire. What should she do now? Xianxia was at a loss for a moment. Xianxia, I'm your little fan. Can I take a photo with you? A passerby asked excitedly. Xianxia licked her dry lips. Inside, she cursed, "Fan? How can you be a fan?" Chapter 1328. Her movie had yet to be released, her print ads had yet to be released on a large scale, and her music video had yet to be released. At most, it would be hyped up on the internet. Where did her fans come from? At most, they were fans of her looks. However, Xianxia was self-aware. She knew very well that she was not a big shot to the extent that she would have fans no matter where she went on the streets. She could be considered a fan. Usually, when a fan made such a request as a celebrity, she would ignore it. Unless there were complete protection measures and bodyguards at the scene, only then would she be able to satisfy the fan's request appropriately. Even so, she could not get too close to the fan. This was what Xianxia had warned her. Because the entire team was planning a publicity stunt for her, they planned to tie her and Xianxia together to increase her popularity. After all, in the entertainment industry, where the new and the old were replaced with each passing day, only the newcomers would be happy, but not the old ones. If there were no topics to talk about, they would be outdated very quickly. Xianxia was currently in a slack period. She was a newcomer who had just debuted and did not have a lot of work yet. Other than some entertainment programs, she had not released any other works yet. Hence, the team hoped that during this period of slack, they could stabilize her popularity. Hence, they tied her and Xianxia together for publicity purposes. With Xianxia's high popularity and Xianxia's natural ability to be on the hot search list, there was naturally no need to worry about the topic when the two of them were tied together. As far as management companies were concerned, artists were more like commodities to them. If they wanted this product to gain more market share, they would rack their brains to plan, package, and promote the product. Now that Huanyu was promoting Xianxia, it was more the intention of the entertainment director, Jilin. Jilin was very optimistic about Xianxia's future, so he did not hesitate to spend a lot of money to package her. However, what was disadvantageous for her was that tying her to Gu Xingzi for publicity purposes would definitely attract extreme protests and dissatisfaction from some of Gu Xingzi's fans. Long before this, Yun Shishir had already received razor blades sent to the company by Gu Xingzi's diehard fans. It wasn't just once. It was a very frequent occurrence. When Mu Shi opened the letters sent by fans, 80% of them were clamoring for Yun Shishir to get out of showbiz. However, the unfavorable situation for her was far more than that. Some fans even sent private messages to insult Yun Shishir, saying that she was a scheming B*TCH and a white lotus who would resort to any means to create hype in order to climb up the social ladder. She was so shameless that she even used Gu Xingzi to create hype. This was something that Gu Xingzi's fans could not tolerate. There were even netizens slandering her, saying that Yun Shishir must have a very scary background. She must have a sugar daddy behind her, and perhaps even more than one. The financier behind her must be very powerful, so much so that the high-quality idol, who had always been untainted and insulated from scandals, was actually, willingly, tied up with her for hype. In the eyes of these fans, there was no way that Gu Xingzi was willing. He was so arrogant and aloof, so how could he lower himself and cooperate with a newcomer to create hype? It must be that Yun Shishir's backer was too powerful, so she maliciously oppressed, exploited, and made use of him. These voices with ulterior motives spread like wildfire online. Hence, Qin Zhou repeatedly warned Yun Shishir not to go out alone. If she met Gu Xingzi's extreme fans, he was afraid that she would be hurt. Chapter 1329. In the past, there was also a new starlet who had just debuted. She was pretty and had collaborated with Gu Xingzi in an idol drama. She acted as a scheming second female lead. Just like Yun Shishir's team, this starlet's team wanted to use Gu Xingzi's popularity to create hype. Gu Xingzi's team naturally wouldn't allow Gu Xingzi's popularity to be used by them. Hence, they bought their own marketing accounts and started to create hype with some verified accounts on Weibo. They spread some groundless gossip on the set on the internet to create an ambiguous feeling between the two of them. The starlet would also post some ambiguous content on Weibo from time to time to make people's imaginations run wild. However, her team took a wrong step. The idol drama that Xiaohua acted in did not have a good character setting. Not only was she the second female lead, but in the drama, this character was sinister and vicious. She was very shrewd and always made things difficult for the male lead and female lead. It was very unflattering. Moreover, the audience liked the couple very much. Hence, the impression of the characters in the drama was brought to reality. They were especially disgusted and resistant to the starlet. In addition, she used Gu Xingzi's popularity to create hype. This caused Gu Xingzi's team to be unhappy. Gu Xingzi's studio quickly released an announcement to clarify the scandal. They also accused the starlet of not having professional ethics and creating hype for herself. This caused a huge impact on Gu Xingzi's acting career. As a result, the public was even more disgusted with the starlet. At a press conference, an extreme fan entered the venue and shook hands with a celebrity at close range. The fan took out a bottle of sulfuric acid and splashed it directly on her face. She cursed angrily, "Shameless B***, go to hell." Then, she took out a small knife and stabbed her ruthlessly. She stabbed her a total of 15 times and her body was covered in blood. She was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Fortunately, the stab didn't hit any vital parts. However, the fatal part was the sulfuric acid that was splashed on her face. The starlet opened her mouth and screamed in fear. The sulfuric acid entered her mouth and burned her throat. Her face was disfigured. It was a horrible sight. After that, she left the entertainment industry and disappeared without a trace. However, this incident caused quite a stir in the entertainment industry at the time. Many celebrities who had taken advantage of Gu Xingzi's popularity felt insecure. From then on, very few female celebrities dared to be associated with Gu Xingzi in a scandal. Because of this, you would never be able to tell who had good intentions and who had bad intentions from so many people. Therefore, Qin Zhou repeatedly warned her not to get too close to the fans. Yun Shishir hesitated, but still compromised and nodded. When the fan saw that Xianxia actually agreed to take a photo together, she was so excited that she rushed forward with her mobile phone to take a photo with her. As soon as she stepped forward, the others also rushed forward and surrounded Xianxia, constantly throwing out questions that were even sharper and more vicious than those of the media reporters. Xianxia, are you really together with Xianxia? Do you like Xianxia? I read the gossip reports that you and Xianxia are secretly dating. Is that true? If you are really together, why are you hiding it? You like Xianxia, but does Xianxia like you? Did you throw yourself at him when you were in a scandal with Xianxia? Someone in the crowd suddenly made a malicious guess. Chapter 1330. Everyone fell silent for a moment. Those sinister, suspicious, and curious gazes fell on her one after another, all of them carrying deep meanings. That person persisted and asked, "If you really like Xianxia, then so be it. But I think you obviously see that he is very popular and is a king. You just debuted and don't have any popularity, so you want to use Xianxia to create hype and bask in his light and popularity, right?" Xianxia was stunned and at a loss for words. She didn't know how to respond to these unkind and malicious questions. It would only make things worse. Moreover, her team did seem to be planning to create hype. That was true. However, it wasn't her studio's intention to create a scandal with Xianxia. Xianxia's team also had this idea. After all, in the entertainment industry, newcomers were constantly debuting. Many of them relied on their unique looks. Although they didn't have many works, they gradually accumulated some popularity by participating in reality shows. Before this, Xianxia had never tried reality shows. In addition, in The Green Apple, Xianxia and Xianxia acted as the classic Dongxia couple, which was the nation's first love. Therefore, both studios reached an agreement. However, in the entertainment industry, there were so many things that were beyond one's control. There was clearly so much unkind public opinion being forced on her, but she couldn't deny it or explain it. On the contrary, public opinion was a better weapon for her to become famous. Xianxia bit her lower lip and avoided answering the question. In her silence, a female student who looked like a passerby was curious and muttered, "Is she Xianxia? Why can't I tell?" As soon as she finished speaking, Xianxia saw her rush forward and reach out to take off her cap and sunglasses. When her exquisite face was exposed in front of everyone, there was an uproar. Xianxia was secretly shocked and instinctively raised her arm to block it. Wow, it's really Xianxia in person. I think she looks better in person than on TV. I don't think so. I always felt that she was just passable. How should I put it? In the trailer of The Green Apple, the character she played was so pure and beautiful, but look at her in person. She even had a seductive aura about her. She looks like the reincarnation of a vixen. She's definitely a vixen. Otherwise, how could Xianxia be so obsessed with her? The scandal has been hyped up for so long, but Xianxia hasn't stepped forward to clarify it. Could it be that they're together? How is that possible? Why would Xianxia fall for her? He's not famous, and we don't even know if he has a clean background. Who knows? The crowd surrounded her and pointed at her, discussing animatedly. Xianxia's hands hung weakly by her side. She lowered her head and looked lonely. "Young Master Gong, there seems to be some movement over there." When Gong Jie passed by a corner of the mall, his accompanying assistant whispered to him. He came to this shopping mall today because Lizhi Holdings' largest flagship store was in this mall. Hence, he was here to check on the company, which had been in poor health a few years ago, and to see how Yun Tianyu was doing now. However, when he passed by the children's clothing cabinet, Gong Jie followed the sound and saw a crowd not far away. Usually, at this time, he would not pay attention to such a disturbing scene. Chapter 1331. When his gaze finally landed on Xianxia's fair and delicate face, his originally cold gaze instantly turned fiery hot. It's her, the woman he saw in the poster in Yun Tianyu's office that day. How could it be her? Gong Jie could not help but walk closer to her. Compared to her image in the poster, she was thinner and taller. Her legs, in particular, were slender and shapely. Her eyes were enchanting and beautiful but at the same time, contained a pure charm. Her brows were gentle and sweet. That face slowly overlapped with the bright and gentle smile in his memory. At that moment, Gong Jie could not help but hold his breath. Similar, too similar, sure. Gong Jie's eyes widened abruptly as he stared fixedly at her face. After repeatedly comparing her to the girl's voice and appearance in his memory, his eyes seemed to have confirmed his suspicions. Ecstasy surged in his eyes as he dashed toward her. On the other side, Xianxia was still surrounded by the crowd with no way out. She looked left and right and surveyed the crowd. However, wherever she looked, there were unfriendly, suspicious, and contemptuous looks. Perhaps, some of them had good intentions. However, some of them had undisguised malice on their faces. There were even some who were recording with their phones. God knew what she would say if it was maliciously intercepted and rearranged. She did not know how it would be distorted. Xianxia, say something. Answer us. Are you trying to ride on Gu Xingzi's popularity to get ahead? Are you using him to create a scandal? Are you trying to use the superstar's scandal to get ahead? Xianxia, you are very good-looking and beautiful. You have good acting skills too. Why must you use such means to become famous? That's right. Is there no cleaner idol in the entertainment industry? Can't you compete fairly with your capabilities? Why must you use such despicable means to climb up the ranks? Don't trample on Gu Xingzi's reputation, okay? Gu Xingzi was able to get to where he was today and secure his position for so many years because of his own capabilities. His fame is earned through his own efforts. In my heart, he is a high-quality idol, so can you please leave him? Don't tarnish him. As soon as this person finished speaking, someone immediately chimed in. That's right. Leave Xianxia. Please leave Xianxia. If you must use such a despicable method to create hype, then please get out of the entertainment industry, okay? Everyone's voices buzzed in her ears like mosquitoes and flies. Xianxia lowered her head expressionlessly. She did not know when this farce would end. However, at this moment, a tall and slender figure suddenly rushed into the crowd. Gong Jie reached out and pushed the crowd aside. His actions were so urgent and domineering until he stood in front of Xianxia. Gong Jie's fingers trembled as he held her face. His nervous gaze fell on her face as he carefully sized her up. Then, he suddenly hugged her tightly in his arms. Xianxia, you're still alive. His voice was deep and hoarse. He hugged her so tightly that it was as if he wanted to merge her into his flesh and blood. Chapter 1332. Xianxia was stunned. Her mind, which was already in a mess, was disconnected from the sudden situation. She could not connect the dots. Before she could see clearly who had rushed into the crowd, she was held tightly in the arms of a man, unable to move. She thought it was a fan and struggled subconsciously. Let go of me. Xianxia, who are you? She flew into a rage out of humiliation and pushed him away with all her might, only to realize, to her chagrin, that this man was simply too strong. No matter how hard she tried and how hard she struggled, the man in front of her remained in this position and did not budge an inch. What was going on? Everyone was shocked and could not come back to their senses. Earlier, when Gong Jie had rushed into the crowd, everyone had immediately noticed this man. It was not because of anything else, but because he was too outstanding. His tall and straight figure was a full shoulder taller than Xianxia. Xianxia was also considered tall and slender, but in front of him, she could only barely reach his chest. The man stood tall. His well-ironed white suit wrapped around his muscular body, as well as his long, straight legs. A black trench coat was draped over his shoulders, reaching down to his knees. He exuded a seductive beauty in uniform, handsome without waves. It was weird to describe a man as seductive, but on this man, it did not feel out of place. He was too beautiful. His neat silver hair fell to his ears. His facial features were like those of an ancient sculpture. His features were well-defined, deep, and exquisite. He was noble and handsome, a pair of deep and mesmerizing eyes. His eyelashes were thick and curled, revealing a cynical and devilish aura. This devilish aura was insufferably arrogant, flamboyant, and unrestrained. He was like an overlord who dominated the world, extremely cold. However, at this moment, when he hugged Xianxia deeply, there was an indescribable tenderness in his eyes. As gentle as jade. The onlookers could not help but be shocked. Her first reaction was, could this be another reality show? Or, was this an idle drama? Hence, the crowd looked back nervously and excitedly to see if there was a hidden camera in a corner of the mall. They couldn't be blamed for suspecting that they were filming an idol drama. The woman in front of them was as beautiful as jade, and the man was elegant and handsome. When they stood together, they looked like an eye-catching painting. Is this a drama? I also feel like it's a drama. Maybe it's a reality show. Who is this man? How come I've never heard of such a young hunk in the entertainment industry? He's so handsome. He has a completely different style from the popular young hunks recently. He's so tall and handsome. I really like this one. What's this man's name? He's so handsome, even more than Xianxia. That's strange, I've never seen him before. With a face like this, it's hard not to be read. What's his name? Is he a celebrity who just debuted? I'm almost mesmerized by him. Oh my God, look at his hands. They're so long and beautiful. His eyelashes are also very thick. If he were to look at me, my heart would probably melt. Chapter 1333. Everyone was mesmerized by Xianxia's cool beauty and couldn't extricate themselves. Many people took out their phones and recorded this scene. They uploaded it to Weibo and curiously asked the netizens about this man's name. However, at this moment, in Xianxia's eyes, the vast world had lost its color. In his eyes, he could only see Xianxia. Everyone else was like air. They didn't exist. Xianxia. Xianxia gently whispered her name. He hugged her even tighter and refused to let go. He was afraid. He was afraid that if he accidentally let go, she would struggle out of his arms. All of this would be like those recurring nightmares that would shatter. He was even more afraid that if he let go again, he wouldn't know how long he would lose her again. He had searched for her for so long. Everyone told him that she was dead and no longer existed in this world. He should have given up, but he still held on to that little bit of stubbornness until now. However, fate allowed him to meet her again. He found her, so no matter what, he couldn't let go of her. 15 years ago, he had lost her once and they had been separated for 15 years. This time, he definitely couldn't let go. If he could, he really wanted to hug her like this. Time would stop at this moment and not move forward. He wanted this hug that he had lost for 15 years to last a little longer, just a little longer. Xianxia's heart skipped a beat when she heard him call her name. In an instant, her body became as stiff as a rock. She didn't know who the man in front of her was, but she didn't know why, but when he called her nickname, Xianxia, he muttered, his voice was incomparably hoarse and deep. It was filled with the fragility and sadness of a foam board. At the same time, it was mixed with the joy and emotion of a reunion after a long separation. For a moment, she seemed to be infected by these emotions. She couldn't push him away. Subconsciously, she didn't reject his hug. Xianxia. In her memory, a boy who looked similar to her always stuck behind her and was inseparable from her. Xianxia. The boy's clear and tender voice was like a clear spring flowing in a mountain stream, tinkling and pleasing to the ear. The girl turned around and said seriously, Xiaojie, call me big sister. Understand? Don't call me that. I like to call your name, Xianxia. Isn't it nice? The girl sighed helplessly. The boy ran in front of her and gently held her face with his soft little hands. His pair of charming eyes slightly curved, and a bright smile bloomed on his face. Xianxia, let's stay together for the rest of our lives, okay? Xiaojie, call me big sister, the girl emphasized weakly. Call me big sister. Don't shout. The boy was unconvinced. We were born on the same day. You were only born a few hours earlier than me. Why should I call you sister? That's unfair. Even if I was born a second earlier than you, I'm still your sister. But you're so stupid and weak. Why don't you call me big brother? I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Xiaojie, if you continue to be like this, I'm going to ignore you. The girl was angry and made a move to leave. The boy hurriedly stopped her and held her hand. Don't, Xianxia. Play with me. I'm playing alone. It's so boring. His voice was soft and cute. He held her hand and twisted his body to act coquettishly. Chapter 1334. No matter how awkward the boy was, when he raised his head to look at the girl's face, which was pretending to be angry, he finally gave in. He lowered his eyes and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Suddenly, he called out bashfully, "Sis." His crisp voice was especially pleasant to the ears. So nice. The girl smiled in satisfaction and guided him patiently. Call me that again. The boy turned to look at her. When he saw the satisfied and bright smile on her face, a hint of shyness flashed across his well-defined eyes. He spoke again in a tender voice. Sis, let's play together, okay? Sure, I've finally found you. Xianxia muttered to himself as he hugged her even tighter. It was so tight that she felt like she was about to suffocate. When she heard his voice, she hesitated for a moment and was secretly puzzled. Why did she feel an inexplicable longing for his embrace? She clearly did not know him. Why did she feel a sense of closeness when they were strangers? She actually did not reject his hug at all. Being hugged so uncontrollably by him, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss and disappointment in her heart. She heard him call her Xianxia. What a familiar tone. However, this situation was too sudden. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she did not know how to react. The people around them were even more confused. Xianxia, may I know if you're filming now? Who is this man? Can anyone explain to me? Xianxia's assistant broke out in a cold sweat and immediately went up to maintain order. Coincidentally, Wuxia had also rushed over with her men. However, when she saw Xianxia in the arms of a handsome stranger, she was stunned. Thinking that it was a die-hard fan, she immediately ordered the bodyguards to go up and pull the person away. Who was Xianxia, though? The moment the bodyguard reached out to touch his shoulder, it was as if in the blink of an eye, and he was sent flying out of the crowd. Everyone was shocked again. They started to believe that this was filming. Otherwise, how could there be such a powerful scene in real life? While the Xianxia was moving, Xianxia raised her head. However, when she saw the facial features of the man standing in front of her, she was shocked again. You? She widened her eyes in disbelief. Her reason and thoughts fiercely clashed, but no matter what, she didn't dare to believe it. The man standing in front of her had eyes that were very similar to hers. His handsome eyes were as deep as the starry sky. His handsome face, sharp facial features, high nose, and thin lips made him look like a sculpture carved by the gods. Every inch of his face was perfect. Xianxia was at a loss for words. Xianxia lowered his head and looked into her eyes. On his usually cold face, there was a rare gentle smile. His smile had always been unruly, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant. However, it was only in front of her that he showed such tenderness that it made people unconsciously lose themselves in him. Many people in the crowd instantly turned into fangirls. He's so handsome when he smiles. I wonder what TV series he's in. If it's broadcasted, I'll definitely watch it till the end. Who is this man? What's his name? I've never heard of him. Can someone tell me? I'm definitely going to eat. Chapter 1335. The reporters who had rushed over upon hearing the news hid in a corner and secretly captured this scene. Mysterious man in showbiz's rising star Xianxia's love and hate entanglement? They're entangled in public. Xianxia appears in a shopping mall after becoming famous. Who is the mysterious man beside her? Breaking news. Xianxia's underground relationship surfaces. Mysterious boyfriend appears in a shopping mall with her. The reporters quickly came up with an eye-catching headline. Immediately after, they swarmed forward and chased after Xianxia and Xianxia. Xianxia, may I know if you know this gentleman? You two look so intimate. What's your relationship with him? Xianxia, is he your boyfriend? How long have you two been dating? Xianxia, there are rumors that you and Xianxia have an ambiguous relationship. What's your relationship with this man? Could he be the rumored sugar daddy behind you? Yun Shirshir's brain was still in a state of shock. Everything happened so suddenly that she was not prepared for it. Gong Jie's sudden appearance disrupted all her thoughts. That was because when she faced the reporter's cameras and flashing spotlights, she was still in a daze. Her eyes were empty and she forgot to answer for a moment. When Mushi saw this, she immediately led people to chase away those annoying reporters. Seriously, these paparazzi are as annoying as flies. No matter where he went, he was haunted. For a moment, the scene was chaotic. Gong Jie hugged Yun Shirshir and held her shoulders with his big hands. He wanted to break through the crowd with her in his arms. However, a reckless reporter rushed in front of him and extended a microphone. "May I ask?" Before he could finish his question, a look of impatience flashed across Gong Jie's face as he coldly said, "Get lost." The reporter was enraged by his disgusting words. Just as he was about to stomp his feet, he heard the crowd exclaim in admiration. "Wow, so cool. He's simply bursting with boyfriend power. He looks so good together with Yun Shirshir." The reporter snorted and picked up his camera to take a picture of Yun Shirshir and Gong Jie hugging each other. Unexpectedly, as soon as he raised his wrist, Gong Jie's men rushed forward and knocked the SLR camera in his hand to the ground. "You are very rude. Why did you smash my camera? My camera is very expensive." Before the reporter could protest enough, he was picked up and thrown out of the crowd. Amidst the chaotic crowd, the poor camera was trampled countless times before it was finally on the verge of death. Soon, Gong Jie's men arrived and began to clear the area. Of course, with Gong Jie's neat character, his men were also very efficient. Not only did they confiscate the cameras of all the media reporters and erase the photos that were secretly taken, but even the cameras and mobile phones of the innocent onlookers were also checked. They only let them go after confirming that they had not taken any photos that they should not have. In just 5 minutes, everyone had been cleared out. The scene quieted down in an instant. Mushi stood at the side, dumbfounded. Gong Jie turned around. The moment he looked at Yun Shirshir, his face regained its gentleness. "Shirshir, do you still recognize me?" Jie, the brother that she had been separated from for 15 years. Mujie. Chapter 1336. Yun Shirshir widened her eyes in astonishment. Her mind was in a mess. However, in the blink of an eye, she quickly rejected this conclusion. Xiao Jie had long disappeared without a trace. She had searched for her brother all these years, but there was no trace of him. She had already taken him as a dead man. That car accident, her mother's death, and her brother's disappearance were like a nightmare in her heart. When she woke up in the hospital, her world had turned cold all of a sudden. The originally happy family of 3 was shattered overnight, leaving her all alone. She did not know how to believe that her mother and brother would be so heartless as to leave her behind. Cold and sorrowful dreams in the middle of the night were still painful memories that she could not get rid of. However, now, a man suddenly appeared in front of her. He looked similar to Mujie and called out to her gently. Yun Shirshir furrowed her brows. Perhaps she was afraid of being disappointed, so she did not dare to have any hope. Yun Shirshir stared at him in a daze. "Do you know me? Are you Shirshir? Shirshirmu. Who are you?" Yun Shirshir was so nervous that her heart skipped a beat, and her breathing became erratic. "Can't you recognize me? I'm Xiao Jie." Gong Jie was so nervous that he was suffocating. His fingers, which were holding her shoulders, could not help but tremble. His face was agitated and uneasy, and his pair of handsome eyes were filled with anxiety. Yun Shirshir squinted her eyes and carefully studied his facial features. She seriously compared him to the handsome and adorable child in her memory. Her cautious gaze made him mistakenly think that she had lost all her memories of him. In a moment of desperation, he clasped her shoulders tightly. His eyes were burning with uneasiness and anxiety as if they were going to burn her skin. "Do you really not remember me?" There was a hint of disappointment and urgency in his tone. Gong Jie inched closer to her. His handsome features were reflected in her eyes as he tried to awaken her dormant memories. "Sis, they all say that you're dead, but I don't believe it. I've been looking for you for so long, I can't wait to turn the whole world upside down. It wasn't easy to find you. Could it be that you really don't recognize me? I've searched the entire world for you. In order to find her, he had searched the entire world. Xianxia was secretly shocked, her eyes filled with astonishment. The memories that had been sealed in the bottom of her heart finally broke through the cage, and all the memories and images came back. Xiaojie, it's really you? She asked timidly, obviously unable to believe whether this was a dream or reality. Her eyes widened in disbelief as her chest heaved up and down. Gongjie's face was filled with joy as he hugged her tightly. His usual arrogance and unruliness faded away. It was as if he had returned to 10 years ago, when he was still sticking to her from behind, obedient and docile. Sister, it's me. Little Jie, I'm little Jie. Sister, I found you. I finally found you. Gongjie's eyes reddened. He had once given up and thought that he had really lost her. However, now that the person he had been longing for was standing in front of him, it was like a dream. That kind of joy of regaining what he had lost. Forgive his lack of words, but right now, his feelings were indescribable. I miss you so much. I've been thinking about you all the time. Xianxia was in a trance for a long time. She felt as if there was a hole in her heart, and then a sour and warm current flowed into it. Chapter 1337. Where exactly did you go? I thought you were dead. Tears rolled down her cheeks and landed on his shoulders as soon as she finished speaking. Mujie's whereabouts were really unknown in that car accident. She thought that he was no longer alive. Now that he was standing before her, alive and well, she was shocked, overjoyed, surprised, and emotional. Gongjie's heart ached at the sight of her teardrops. He cupped her face lovingly and gently wiped away the tears from her eyes with his fair, jade-like fingertips. His thin lips trembled slightly as he said, "Sis, I'm sorry that I've finally found you after searching for so long. I made you wait for me for so long." His tone was tinged with guilt as he hugged her and murmured softly, "Sis, I'm sorry." He thought that he had lost her too. That dusty memory was brushed away. After 15 years of separation, the two snuggled up to each other and hugged each other tightly. They were deeply moved by each other's presence. Gongjie said faintly, "I miss you so much. Sis, I miss you." Gongjie's deep, hoarse voice rang beside her ear. It was as seductive as an orchid. She did not know what had happened. She walked up to Xianxia and sized up the man standing before her warily. She still remembered how this man had gotten rid of a well-trained bodyguard in an instant. It seemed that he was skilled in combat. However, when she saw Gongjie's handsome face, which was extremely similar to Xianxia's, she was stunned. "Sure he is?" she asked hesitantly and tentatively. Gongjie looked up and glanced at her coldly. His eyes were apathetic and cold. "Who are you?" As soon as he spoke, a few guards in black suits immediately surrounded him. Even through the pair of sunglasses, it was difficult to hide their sharp and cold eyes, staring at him like a tiger watching its prey. Mushi's shoulders shrank in fright as she retreated slightly. She was a little intimidated by this terrifying scene. She immediately looked at Xianxia for help. "She is my assistant. Her name is Mushi." Xianxia immediately explained. Gongjie's expression toward Mushi softened a little at her words, but it was still as cold as ice. "Please give us some time, I have something to discuss with her." "Is it convenient?" he asked in a deep voice. "Oh, of course, it's convenient." Mushi was at a loss under his cold gaze. She broke out in a cold sweat as she said, "Sir, please go ahead." Gongjie nodded and then turned to look at her. "Sis, come with me." He gently held Xianxia's hand and left under the escort of his bodyguards. Mushi stared dumbfoundedly at their departing backs before she came to her senses. Did this man just call Xianxia sister? It was only at this thought that she realized that the two of them really looked alike. Sure. Why hadn't he heard of it before? Now that it had appeared out of nowhere, he was really shocked. Although this man looks cold, he is really handsome. Gongjie exuded a cold and aloof beauty. Wearing a white suit and a windbreaker, he was handsome and arrogant like a god. Just now, when his cold gaze swept over her, she was so nervous that her heart actually skipped a beat. The siblings' genes were just too perfect. The sister was beautiful, and the brother was as handsome as a cast. She even felt that if this Gong Jie were to enter the entertainment industry, he would definitely set off a storm. Chapter 1338. In the afternoon, the bright sun shone into the house. Yu was woken up by a call from Li Hanlin. He opened his sleepy eyes and picked up the phone. Li Hanlin began to report the company's financial report for the new quarter. Xiao Yichen was still asleep, so Yu got out of bed quietly and walked to the living room. He poured himself a glass of milk and drank it. He looked around and realized that Yun Shishir was no longer there. He walked to the table and saw the note Yun Shishir left behind. He glanced at it and realized that she had gone to the shopping mall to buy some things. Yu sat at the table and listened to Li Hanlin's financial report while looking out of the window. However, on Li Hanlin's end, his voice suddenly paused and he said in a deep voice, "Oh right, Director Yun, there's one more thing I need to report to you." His tone was serious and cautious. Yu could not help but become serious when he heard it. "Speak." "I've already gotten the results of the report you asked me to verify," Li Hanlin said in a serious tone. "The conclusion is that young Master Gong and your mother are related. This means that he might be your uncle." As soon as he finished speaking, Yu was obviously shocked. He spat out a mouthful of milk on the table. "What did you say?" Yu was shocked and doubtful. "Agent Li, are you sure there's no mistake in your report?" "I'm sure there's no mistake. I've checked it repeatedly and this is the result." Li Hanlin's tone was solemn and cautious. Obviously, he had come to this conclusion after repeated comparisons. Yu's face darkened. Based on their relationship, could it be that his mother was Gong Jie's sister who had been separated from him for 15 years? Based on their seniority, Gong Jie was his uncle? Should he call Gong Jie uncle? As for Gong Jie's father, Gong Xiaoying, the current leader of Hurricane Group and the ruler of half of the fire industry, was actually his grandfather in terms of seniority. Mommy is Gong Xiaoying's daughter, the daughter of the Hurricane Group. Yu's mind was thrown into disarray in the wind. How could there be such a melodramatic thing in this world? Yu bit her pink lips with a conflicted expression. If that was the case, then Mommy and Gong Jie were siblings. She had heard Gong Jie mention that he had been looking for a long-lost relative. Then, the person he had been looking for a long time should be Mommy. However, he was a little conflicted. Was he really going to let Mommy and young Master Gong acknowledge each other? He didn't want his Mommy to interact with the Gong family. There was no need to elaborate on the prominent status of the Hurricane Group. On the other hand, the Gong family, who controlled the Hurricane Group, was undoubtedly a powerful and influential family. The background of the Gong family was not something that the Mu family could compare to. No matter how small a figure in the Gong family was, they could completely stand on their own and do whatever they wanted. If an analogy had to be made, it could be said that. Chapter 1339. The Gongs, on the other hand, were closely related to the world structure. In this world, every war that started was closely related to them. In other words, the Gong family's power was obvious. The entire family system could not be explained in a few words. Moreover, the Gongs and Mus had a feud. Yu still remembered how Gong Jie hated the Mus to the core. This would not do. He did not want the Gong family to acknowledge his mother. The thought of having to address Gong Jie as uncle made him feel extremely awkward. Then he thought of how Gong Jie and Mu Yaja would stand face to face. As enemies, their eyes would turn bloodshot. According to seniority, one should address the other as brother-in-law and the other as brother-in-law. Then he thought of how Gong Jie would grit his teeth when he saw Mu Yaja. That scene was quite scary no matter how he thought about it. Back then, the Mus were the ones who caused his grandmother's death. Although Mu Sheng was not the direct culprit, he was still the one who indirectly caused Mu Qingqing's death. Gong Jie must hate him to the core. He must hate Mu Yaja too. This feud between the Gongs and Mus would not be written off easily no matter what. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that Yu did not want his mother to know his identity. If she knew that he was involved in smuggling, arms, and oil at such a young age, He wondered what kind of shocked expression Mommy would have on her face when the time came. Yu had a headache and held his forehead. His temples were throbbing with a dull, throbbing pain. Director Yun, what should we do about this matter? Should we report it to Master Gong? Keep it a secret for now. Yu said in a low voice, let me think about how to handle this matter. Just as he said that, the door lock turned. Yu turned around and saw that Mu Yaja was back. He immediately lowered his voice and instructed, I have something on, I'll hang up first. I'll contact you later. All right. After saying that, he hung up the phone and went up to greet him. His face was no longer gloomy as he raised a cute pink smile. Daddy, you're back. Mu Yaja stood at the door, exhausted. He lowered his head slightly and saw Yu walking up to him obediently. She took the jacket from him and hung it on the hanger. He felt a sense of warmth in his heart. Yu, Daddy will hug you. He reached out and pulled Yu into his arms. The little boy was very light and much thinner than Xiaoyichen. Mu Yaja kissed his rosy cheeks and asked gently, where are Mommy and Big Brother? Big Brother is taking an afternoon nap. As for Mommy, she went shopping. She should be back soon, right? Yes. Daddy, are you thirsty? I'll pour you some tea. It's okay. Mu Yaja walked to the sofa and sat down with him in his arms. He held Yu's little hand and squeezed his palm gently. His thin lips curved slightly. It's rare to see you so obedient in front of me. In the past, Yu would only show such an obedient and cute side to Xianxia. Initially, he was cold and distant to him. Later on, he slowly accepted him. Now, he was open to him and was no longer so resistant. This little boy had accepted him. Yu's little face blushed, but he snorted coldly and said arrogantly, don't be so smug. If it weren't for the fact that you're the man my mommy has chosen, I wouldn't be so gentle to you. Mu Yaja smiled dotingly and couldn't be bothered to expose him.